Chapter 282. Zicheng is also here. Her training location should not be along this route, so how could she appear in this place alone? Is she alone, and the rest of her team is not here? Mingxi asked. Yes, she is alone. Fengwu said with certainty. Don't worry about how she got here. The three of them are locked together, so our task now has changed from saving 2 people to saving 3 people. Ajur expressed his dissatisfaction with the increasing workload. In his heart, he cursed the culprit of all this, Feng Yanran. If it were not for that woman, how could they fall into the pirate's lair and risk being discovered at any time to save people? If Feng Yanran appeared in front of him now, he must give her 2 slaps to vent his anger. Xiao Wu, do you remember how to get there? Mingxi asked. I remember. I will draw it for you. Feng Wu's memory was not bad, so it was not a problem to remember the route. Using a pen, she drew a simple map on a piece of cloth, and the stone room where Feng Yanran and the others were in immediately appeared on the paper. Great, we finally have a map. We will send you up first, and you don't have to worry about the rest. After we save people, we will send you a signal. When you hear the signal, you go to the cave and wait, and then we will leave together. Ajur did not want Fengwu to be in danger, so he said. Fengwu nodded obediently, and did not complain to follow, which made Mingxi and Ajur very satisfied. Mingxi touched the Fengwu girl's head, and then sent Fengwu back to the kitchen. After the 2 of them sent Fengwu back, they immediately followed the map to find the room where Feng Yanran and the others were locked up. However, Mingxi and the others did not know that in the stone room where Feng Yanran and the others were locked up, there was a situation that was neither big nor small. In the ground of the stone room where the 3 people were locked up, there was a hole that was just big enough to enter. Of course, this hole did not appear out of thin air, but was dug by Zicheng's pet, the treasure-seeking mouse. This treasure-seeking mouse was a very rare magical beast in the Heavenly Wind continent, and Feng Yanran had only heard of its name, but had never seen it before. Now that she finally saw one, she curiously looked at it several times. Zicheng, why did Baobao dig a hole here? Is it to let us escape from here? Feng Yanran asked curiously. As an expert at digging holes and finding treasures, the treasure-seeking mouse would dig a hole to get to the treasure if it was underground. The treasure-seeking mouse's ability to dig holes was even better than that of many Earth-type magical beasts. I don't know, maybe Baobao found something. Of course, Zicheng would not say that Baobao found a treasure underground, so it dug the hole to find it. Let's go down and take a look. If treasure-seeking mouse wants something, it can't be ordinary. O'Brien said with great interest. As everyone knew, treasure-seeking mouse's vision was the highest among all magical beasts. Unless it was a really good thing, it would not be interested in something that had a very high vision. The 3 of them crawled into the hole that had just been dug. The hole was very deep, and they could not see the end. They did not know how treasure-seeking mouse had dug such a deep tunnel in such a short time. About half an hour after the 3 of them left, Mingxi and Ajur took care of the guards and used the key to enter the stone room where the 3 people were locked up. However, the 2 of them did not expect that they were still one step too late. The 3 people had already left the stone room, and were nowhere to be seen. They dug a tunnel and ran away. Ajur was shocked. He had a whole new level of respect for the 3 of them. To be able to dig such a tunnel, and in a situation where magic was sealed. This was too incredible. You're thinking too much. They didn't dig this tunnel. This tunnel has the scent of a magical beast. Looks like they're hiding something. Mingxi did not need to turn around to guess what Ozzy was thinking. He shook his head and said, Magical beast. The 3 of them are hiding a magical beast. Ajur raised his eyebrows in surprise. He thought that the 3 of them were so powerful that they could dig such a tunnel by themselves. Let's go in. The 2 of them exchanged glances, and decided to follow the tunnel to take a look. Ajur walked in front, and Mingxi followed behind. Mingxi, who was walking at the back, used magic to restore the entrance of the tunnel to its original state. No one would be able to tell that there was a tunnel here before. The treasure-hunting mouse was not big, so it was impossible for it to dig a big tunnel. The tunnel was only big enough for one person to crawl in. It was not even possible for them to stand up. The 3 of them followed the tunnel dug by the baby treasure-hunting mouse and crawled for an hour. At that very moment, The outside world was in an uproar. Someone had broken into the stone room where the three of them were imprisoned. Additionally, the person inside had been rescued. The guards outside had also been killed. This was definitely a piece of news that infuriated the three great leaders of Yaofeng. What's going on? How could you let someone sneak onto the island without even knowing? What are you guys doing? What's the point of keeping you around? Evil Wind was furious. 3 criminals had been kidnapped in his territory. Even until now, he still didn't know who had done it. How could Yaofeng not be furious? Why wouldn't he be furious? Big brother, calm down. This is all because of our subordinates' incompetence. Big brother, please calm down. Jacko and I will definitely catch the intruder who dared to sneak onto the island to save people, Bardock said. That's right, big brother. We will definitely catch those 3 people, Jacko said fiercely. The small captains kneeling on the ground all became mutes. They did not dare to say a word. They were afraid that the 3 leaders would turn their attention to them and vent their anger on them. Did you find out anything? Have you confirmed the intruder's identity? How many people were there, whether they were men or women? What were their professions, and which faction sent them? Did you not find out anything at all? Jacko looked coldly at the 30 captains kneeling on the ground. In the Red Skull pirate group, other than the 3 leaders, there were 30 captains and vice-captains in charge of the hundreds of subordinates under them. These 30 captains were the strongest experts in the Red Skull pirate group other than the 3 leaders. They were also the trusted aides of the 3 leaders. Reporting to the leader, I found out that after the 3 people disappeared, 2 of them disappeared as well. Those 2 were just ordinary pirates. They didn't belong to any of the 30 captains' teams. That's why we didn't notice anything strange about them at the beginning. If Mingxi and Ajur were here, they would definitely realize that the captain who spoke was the unknown captain that they had met at the beginning. Chapter 283. So it's 2 men who sneaked up. Jacko nodded. Did anyone else find anything? If so, just say it. Bardock said impatiently. The 30 captains looked at each other and shook their heads. Forget it, get out of here. Hurry up and find those 2. Yaofeng waved his hand and signaled the captains to get down to work. His voice was full of impatience. After the 30 captains left, the atmosphere in the room didn't relax at all. Big brother, have you really decided? Jacko said with a worried face. That's right, big brother. We only have 1 water essence, so only 1 person can go. It's too dangerous for you to go alone. That place is where that person is sealed. It's too risky for big brother to go alone. Let's wait until we get more water essence from the other countries. Bardock said with the same worry. Yaofeng waved his hand. We don't have time now. Because of what we did a while ago, we have attracted the attention of some people. If we don't act soon, I'm afraid there will be more problems. You 2 don't need to persuade me anymore. I've already made up my mind. Pay attention to our brothers on the island for the next 2 days. I'm afraid that the Bohai royal family won't let this matter end so easily. Their people will probably arrive soon. Not to mention the result of the discussion between the 3 leaders. Mingxi and Ajur had already been crawling in the tunnel for a while, but they still hadn't seen the end of the tunnel. The 2 of them were confused. Where did this tunnel lead to? Was it the beach? They couldn't think of anything, so they focused on crawling. They just didn't know when they would reach the end. Mingxi and the others didn't know how much longer they would have to crawl, but Feng Yanran and the others had already reached the end. At the end of the tunnel was an underground palace. Who would have thought that there would be such a grand palace under Yaofeng Island? The palace was built with all kinds of magic crystals and ores. It took up a lot of space and was very grand. Could this be the Red Skull's treasure trove? If it was a grand building, if it wasn't the Red Skull's people, O'Brien couldn't think of anyone who could build such a grand palace under the Red Skull's nose. Are we going in? If it's really Red Skull's treasure trove, I don't know if there will be experts guarding it. Feng Yanran looked at the buildings in front of her with some worry. Don't worry, I don't think this place has anything to do with Red Skull, Zicheng said. Why do you say that? Of course, Zicheng could not tell them that she knew because of the system. Think about it. If Red Skull is really so rich that they can build such a palace, Why would they kidnap Princess Helene and do business at sea without any capital? Feng Yanran and O'Brien thought about it and agreed. With so much money, why would they need to be pirates? They could just find a place to live comfortably for a few lifetimes. Who are you? Leave this place immediately. A clear female voice suddenly sounded. Then a young girl in 7-colored clothes suddenly flew out of the palace. The young girl had red hair, but the tuft of hair on the top of her head seemed to have been dyed. There were a total of 6 colors, plus the red hair on her body. There were 7 colors. Originally, such a mess of colors on a person's head would definitely make her look like a madman. Even if she was not a madman, she would still be regarded as a non-mainstream person. However, these 7 colors matched the young girl very well, making the young girl look more charming. Sorry, we didn't come here on purpose. Feng Yanran thought that the young girl was the owner of this place, and said to the young girl embarrassedly, "Leave here immediately or die." The young girl raised her head high, looking very arrogant. At this time, Zicheng smiled and stepped forward. "I'm sorry, miss, we won't leave. There is something that Bao Bao is interested in here." Zicheng pointed to the treasure-hunting mouse. The treasure-hunting mouse had been very humble since the appearance of the young girl, and its 4 little paws were almost lying on the ground. This was a bloodline suppression that only appeared when a magical beast saw a bloodline of a higher level than itself. Zicheng and the others were not magical beasts, so naturally, they could not feel this suppression. "You're just a treasure-hunting mouse, and you want to take the things inside? I really don't know who gave you the courage." The young girl only glanced at the treasure-hunting mouse indifferently, her eyes full of disdain. Although the treasure-hunting mouse was despised like a grandson, it did not dare to make a sound and obediently lay on the ground. It was completely different from its usual lively appearance. Zicheng's mind moved and connected with the treasure-hunting mouse's mind. "Bao Bao, what's wrong with you?" Zicheng was a little worried about the treasure-hunting mouse's condition, so he asked with his mind. "Master," Bao Bao felt a strong bloodline suppression. "The girl in front of us must be a magical beast with a very high bloodline level, or even a holy beast." As for a divine beast, Bao Bao did not even dare to think about that possibility. Moreover, divine beasts could not transform into human form because their bloodline was too strong. This girl could transform into human form, which was enough to prove that she was not a divine beast. A holy beast. Zicheng's eyes lit up. She did not think that she would be so lucky to encounter a legendary holy beast. She did not have many magical beasts under her command, and she only had one holy beast. If she could get her hands on this holy beast, her strength would definitely increase again. Just thinking about it made Zicheng's heart burn with excitement. If this holy beast was useless, she could sell it to the system store in exchange for points. Then, she could buy anything she wanted. Zicheng and the treasure-hunting mouse's telepathic messages were ignored by the young girl. To her, these humans were just insignificant bugs that could not pose a threat to her. "Are you still not going to scram? Do you want me to send you away?" The young girl smiled coldly, and her temperament became noble and cold. "Miss, everyone can get the treasure. I advise you to step aside." After knowing the young girl's identity, Zicheng was not afraid. Instead, he was determined to get the treasure. Feng Yanran and O'Brien stood to the side without saying a word. They could see that Zicheng was determined to go against the young girl. "Since you want to die, I will send you on your way. Foolish human, you will pay the price for your ignorance." The young girl flipped her wrist, and a huge fire phoenix appeared from her hand. It fiercely pounced on Zicheng. "Come on!" Zicheng shouted, and a gorgeous staff appeared in her hand. After escaping from the stone room, she had exchanged something from the system that could be used to remove the demon sealing bracelet. As expected, the bracelet could no longer seal her magic. When the staff appeared, the young girl was stunned. It was as if she did not expect to see it here. Chapter 284. This is a semi-divine tool, the Staff of Life, the weapon used by the Elf King before he fell. Although it is no longer nourished by the Elf King's spiritual power, and has fallen from a divine tool to a semi-divine tool, this kind of treasure shouldn't be owned by a human like you. The multicolor-clothed girl exclaimed in surprise. The Staff of Life was worthy of being the legendary divine tool used by the Elf King. Under the power of the Staff of Life, the girl's attack was easily blocked. The fiery red phoenix let out an unwilling cry in the sky and slowly dissipated in the air. Although the attack was successfully blocked, Zicheng also didn't have a good time. The magic power required to wield the semi-divine tool was very large. Just by blocking this attack, half of the magic power in her body had already been used up. Stupid human, do you think anyone can use a semi-divine tool? You really overestimate yourself. The multicolor-clothed girl saw that Zicheng was barely able to use the semi-divine tool, and that his magic power was almost exhausted. She disdainfully sneered. The girl waved her lily-white hand, and a huge flame appeared out of thin air. Finally, it turned into several hundred fiery phoenixes. These phoenixes cried out and flew towards Zicheng with ominous glints in their eyes. Zicheng's complexion changed. He silently chanted an incantation and waved the Staff of Life in his hand, bringing out bursts of life aura. This life aura surrounded Zicheng. When the fiery phoenix's attacks hit the life aura, it had no effect on Zicheng. The number of fiery phoenixes in the sky kept increasing. The protective shield formed by the magic power of the Staff of Life was getting weaker and weaker. Finally, with a crash sound, the protective shield shattered into pieces and disappeared in the air. And because the Staff of Life was no longer supported by magic power, it became dim. After losing the protection of the Staff of Life, Zicheng was hit by the fiery phoenixes and was sent flying with serious injuries. After flying for 5 meters, he fell from the sky. After falling to the ground, he spat out a big mouthful of blood. His whole body was dispirited a lot. A trifling human dares to provoke me. The girl gently flew up and slowly landed beside Zicheng's feet. She looked down at Zicheng, who was in such a sorry state. Feng Yanran, who originally wanted to check on Zicheng's injuries, was firmly held back by O'Brien. He was afraid that she would take things too hard and rush forward, becoming another target for that young girl. This young girl's battle prowess was terrifyingly strong. Defeating Zicheng didn't take much effort at all. It was like playing a game. With their strength, if they went forward, wouldn't they be courting death? The cold-faced O'Brien began to blame Zicheng. Just now they had already said that they would be allowed to leave, but Zicheng was still so fearless and rushed forward. It was fine if she wanted to die, but did she not think that she would implicate him in Yanran? She labeled Zicheng as a selfish and self-reliant person who could not get close to her. She made up her mind to persuade Yanran to stay away from Zicheng in the future. She could not be used by this woman. If Irene knew O'Brien's thoughts, she would definitely nod in agreement. The heroine of this novel, Zicheng, was a person who looked weak and kind on the outside, but was actually selfish and cold-blooded. Zicheng and Feng Yanran gave people the impression that they were kind and gentle girls. However, although the style of the two was similar, there were essential differences. Zicheng's kindness was only directed at things that she thought could earn her favorability, and also towards people whose favorability had reached 100. To put it bluntly, her kindness was only directed towards her own people who had 100% favorability, and towards people or things that were of value to her. Feng Yanran, on the other hand, was a real Virgin Mary. Although she sometimes wanted to teach a lesson to people she didn't like, she would use a little tricks. But most of the time, she was a very Virgin Mary person. No matter what she did, she would do it from a kind point of view, regardless of whether it was right or wrong. She only cared about whether it was a kind thing or not. In Irene's mind, these two women were not good people. Irene was happy to see people who didn't have a good impression of either of them. Digression, back to the main topic. Zicheng was lying on the ground powerlessly. Blood was flowing from the corner of her mouth, and her face was as pale as paper. It was obvious that she was seriously injured. You too, take this overconfident human and leave quickly. This place is not for you to come. The girl didn't want to kill anyone. She turned her head to look at Feng Yanran and O'Brien, and asked them to come and take her away. However, the girl didn't expect that the moment she turned her head, an unforeseen event suddenly happened. Zicheng, who was lying on the ground powerlessly and seriously injured, suddenly moved. She waved her small hand, and a black smoke quickly spread around Zicheng. The girl's clothes were stained with some black smoke. The girl's expression didn't change. She waved her sleeve, but found that she couldn't use her strength. Her body was getting weaker and weaker, and finally, she couldn't even maintain her human form. Despicable human! What did you do to me? The girl screamed with resentment, but she still couldn't stop her body from changing. Finally, she turned into a 7-colored bird and appeared in front of the 3 people. This 7-colored bird wasn't big. It was about the size of an ordinary pheasant, but its feathers were flowing with colorful light. It looked very extraordinary. It's actually a 7-colored phoenix, Zicheng said in surprise. She used her points to exchange for a bottle of extreme recovery potion. After drinking it, the wounds on her body were almost completely healed. She jumped up and stood on the ground. This time, it was her turn to look at the girl who had turned into her original form. No, now it should be the mythical 7-colored phoenix. This is a 7-colored phoenix, the legendary mythical beast of the mythical beasts. Feng Yanran and O'Brien were already dumbfounded by this change. How did this girl turn into a 7-colored phoenix in the blink of an eye? Moreover, it was such a lofty mythical beast. No, this wasn't an ordinary mythical beast. It was a 7-colored phoenix that represented auspiciousness among the mythical beasts. This is too inconceivable. Why can she transform? Isn't it said that the mythical beast's bloodline is too powerful? While possessing a powerful bloodline talent, it is also deprived of the ability to transform. O'Brien looked at the mythical 7-colored phoenix in disbelief. If it wasn't for the fact that this bird's original form was exactly the same as the one he saw in the Mythical Beast Illustrated Handbook, he would have thought that he was seeing things. Zicheng didn't care about Feng Yanran and O'Brien's exclamations. Her attention was now focused on the mythical 7-colored phoenix that had fallen to the ground. The black smoke that she used to deal with the 7-colored phoenix was a secret medicine that she had exchanged with her favorability points and the system. This medicine wouldn't endanger Mo Gai's life, but it was effective against all magical beasts. Once touched by this smoke, no matter how powerful a magical beast was, even if it was a mythical beast, it would still be affected. Although this medicine wouldn't endanger one's life, as long as it was a magical beast, once touched by it, it would immediately lose all its abilities. Its strength would disappear, and it would be at the mercy of others. Chapter 285. This medicine was so powerful, of course, it couldn't be used endlessly. This medicine could only be used once by a magical beast, and it would only be effective for 10 minutes each time. After 10 minutes, the magical beast's strength would gradually recover. In other words, if she couldn't kill or tame the magical beast within 10 minutes, she would be out of luck. Because this medicine was also effective on mythological beasts, it required a shocking amount of points. For this bottle of medicine, she had saved up a long time of goodwill, but it was almost emptied. However, thinking that she was about to have a mythological beast as a pet, she didn't care about this loss. She took out the rare beast contract scroll from her storage ring. From the name of this scroll, one could understand its use. It was specially used to tame magical beasts. The contract scroll Zicheng took out was of a very high level. She thought that she would succeed, but she didn't expect that after the scroll turned into a purple light and entered the body of the mythological beast, the 7-colored phoenix, there was no reaction at all. Because of the medicine, the 7-colored phoenix had been beaten back to its original form. Now all its strength had been lost, and it didn't even have the strength to speak. It was filled with hatred. If it knew that this human was so sinister, it would have killed her long ago. It wouldn't have shown mercy. That hateful human also wanted to contract it. Who was it? It was a mythological beast that represented auspicious signs. Its master must be extremely beautiful, have an extremely powerful family background, and have the strongest bloodline. Otherwise, it would rather explode and die than submit to anyone. The 7-colored phoenix glanced at Zicheng with disdain. Its eyes were filled with indescribable ridicule and disdain. A mere beast dared to laugh at her. Don't think that just because the contract scroll was useless, she had no other way. She had plenty of ways to contract this mythological beast. It's useless, Junior Zicheng. This 7-colored phoenix is a mythological beast. It has the ability to choose its own master. If it was an ordinary mythological beast, you might be able to use force to subdue it. However, the seven-colored phoenix can't be subdued by force. It will only choose its own master. If it's someone it doesn't like, it won't submit even if you defeat it. Seeing Zicheng's actions, O'Brien finally understood what she wanted to do. He didn't want to see her wasting everyone's time doing meaningless things, so he could only speak up. Zicheng didn't speak. Her eyes were cold. A drop of blood was forced out from the tip of her tongue. This drop of blood dripped onto the seven-colored phoenix, and the seven-colored phoenix immediately cried out in pain. It couldn't believe that there was a human who dared to use such a disgusting blood contract with a mythological beast. Once the contract, and the contract, and the contract, and the contract, and the contract, 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 contract, of course. T. Blood pact. Zicheng. How dare she? O'Brien couldn't believe it. Because the blood contract was too cruel, it had long been banned on the continent. Any magician or swordsman who used the blood contract would become the public enemy of the magical beasts. The magical beasts in the world would kill them on sight, and the empires and star halls wouldn't care. She was willing to offend all the magical beasts in the world, for a mythological beast. Feng Yanran also covered her mouth in shock. She couldn't believe that Zicheng, who had always been kind to others, would use such a cruel method to contract with a mythological beast. That was a mythological beast. A blood contract was a humiliation to any magical beast, let alone a mythological beast. It would definitely not give in. Feng Yanran suddenly had a bad premonition. She felt that something bad was going to happen. Sure enough, from the body of the seven-colored phoenix, there suddenly came a destructive will to die. The mythological beast self-detonated. Zicheng also didn't expect that the seven-colored phoenix would self-detonate its bloodline. She was sure that it couldn't mobilize any power, so she dared to use the blood contract to contract with this mythological beast. But she didn't expect that this mythological beast would rather die than give in. It would rather self-detonate its bloodline than let her contract with it. What kind of concept was a mythological beast self-detonating its bloodline? Within a radius of 1,000 miles, there wouldn't be any living thing that could survive. Feng Yanran and O'Brien's faces changed greatly. This was the rhythm of perishing together. Zicheng, stop. O'Brien shouted. Little Cheng, don't. Feng Yanran screamed in horror. Zicheng wanted to stop, but once the blood contract was activated, unless the contract failed, she couldn't stop at all. She could only gamble. If she succeeded, she would get a mythological beast. If she failed, she could just hide in the system space. She wouldn't die either way. After making up her mind, Zicheng didn't retreat. Instead, she became even more determined. The destructive aura shrouded the sea with Monster Wind Island as the center. The water-type demonic beasts in the sea all fled in panic. They swam further away, eager to escape the lock of this power. The demonic beasts in the water fled like crazy. When some ships passed by and saw this scene, the experienced helmsman immediately changed the direction and fled further away, changing the original course. All the water-type demonic beasts fled in panic. Even the flying demonic beasts in the sky sped up when they passed by this area. They fled at a speed that they had never seen before. This strange scene kept happening, but only a small number of people were lucky enough to see it. The sea pirates of Monster Wind Island had lived on the sea for generations. They certainly couldn't ignore the strange movements of the water-type demonic beasts. Instead, they reported it one by one, and finally reported it to the three masters of Monster Wind Island. Monster Wind Island was preparing to go to that place to get the treasure that he had been longing for. He didn't expect such a big thing to happen before he left. The three leaders gathered together to discuss why such a thing happened, whether there had been such an example in the past, and what kind of impact it would have on Bewitching Wind Island. Feng Wu, who was among the maids, was chatting with the other maids. These maids didn't have endless work to do all day long. They also had time to rest, such as now. Do you think something happened in the sea? Why are those demonic beasts running for their lives? How would we know? It can't be anything good. Who cares? Anyway, even if the sky falls, those men outside will hold it up. It has nothing to do with us. Fengwu watched as the girls chimed in one after another. She didn't say a word and just stared out the window in a daze. Chapter 286. Through the window, she saw the sea. This was the death aura, and the will of death. Who was seeking death? Not to mention the various changes caused by the explosion of the seven-colored phoenix, which made the people outside uneasy and terrified. Feng Yanran and O'Brien, who were closest to Zicheng and the seven-colored phoenix, were so scared that their hearts almost stopped. Both of them thought that Zicheng was crazy. He would rather die than give up the opportunity to contract the seven-colored phoenix. Crazy? What a lunatic. Crazy. He was really crazy. Was Zicheng really crazy? Of course not. He had just thought of his own escape route, so he was fearless. Just when Feng Yanran and O'Brien thought that they would die here, two unexpected figures appeared. Ming Shi and Ajur crawled all the way, and when they were about to crawl out of the cave, they felt a frightening destructive force. This force was too strong. Ming Shi immediately reacted. This was the powerful force formed by the explosion of a mythological beast. The two of them were stunned. They just came to chase Feng Yanran and the others. How could they expect that a mythological beast would explode here? Although they had not personally experienced the power of a mythological beast's self-destruction, it was not difficult for them to imagine how powerful the destructive power was. Once a mythological beast self-destructed, it would be easy for it to destroy a country. Even if the two of them were extraordinary and had their own means, they really did not want to experience the power of a mythological beast's explosion. The two of them sped up, and when they finally crawled out of the cave, they did not have time to see how magnificent the palace was. Among the two of them, one of them directly hit Zicheng with a fireball, and the other one picked up the seven-colored phoenix on the ground and used nature's qi to prevent it from exploding. Ah! Zicheng screamed. Ajur's fireball hit his back, and he spat out a big mouthful of blood on the spot. Feng Yanran and O'Brien were stunned by this sudden change, and then they were overjoyed. Senior Ming Shi. The two of them had never been so happy to see Ming Shi. You too, when we get back, I will report the matter of you leaving the team without permission to the vice principal. I hope that this will be the last time you act without permission before returning to school. Ming Shi saw the two of them and smiled faintly, but there was no smile in his eyes. How could the two of them dare to have any objections? They immediately nodded like garlic. Just now, they really thought that they were dead for sure. It wasn't that the two of them didn't want to break Zicheng's contract, it was just that their mana was still sealed. They didn't know why Zicheng's mana wasn't sealed and could still use it, but they couldn't. If they could use their mana, they would have already run away. Why would they stand here and wait for death? Senior Ming Shi, I'm sorry. This time it's all my fault. I proposed to help Princess Hailin. It has nothing to do with Yanran. O'Brien was still protecting Feng Yanran. She didn't want Feng Yanran to be punished by the school because of this matter. No, it's me, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have been so willful. I even contacted O'Brien. Feng Yanran said eagerly. Yanran, it's not your fault. You don't have to admit this crime for me. O'Brien would rather have something happen to herself than let the girl she liked be hurt in the slightest. No, it's my fault. O'Brien, you don't have to protect me. Feng Yanran shook her head desperately, and tears flowed down her face. Ming Shi and Ajur couldn't be bothered to watch the two of them fight to plead guilty. No matter which one of them pleaded guilty, it was a fact that both of them would be arrested. Both of them would definitely be punished. Even if one of them admitted to the crime, the other would not be spared. The Rainbow Phoenix thought that it was going to die. It didn't plan to live anymore. As a mythological beast, it had its own dignity. It would never allow a human to use such a disgusting method to force a contract with it. Its consciousness was already blurred. It only felt that the power in its body was becoming more and more violent, and that sinister human's blood contract was also pressing down heavily on it. It didn't have the slightest bit of strength now, and could only resist with its willpower. At this moment, it felt a very comfortable power circulating in its body. Then its strength actually recovered little by little. The rainbow phoenix was pleasantly surprised. It opened its eyes, and saw a beautiful face in front of it. This face was too beautiful, and it could feel the noble bloodline of a god on his body. "Little thing, are you okay?" Mingxi put it on the ground and asked with a smile. He knew that mythological beasts were born with spiritual intelligence. This rainbow phoenix's spiritual intelligence was definitely not low. "Jiujiu!" It called out excitedly, and then slowly flew up. Its pair of beautiful eyes stared at Mingxi without blinking. It even forgot about its enemy, Zicheng. "Come here." Mingxi stretched out his hand. "Jiu!" After a gentle cry, the rainbow phoenix slowly stopped on Mingxi's inner arm. "You have 7 colors. I'll call you Little 7 from now on," Mingxi said softly as he patted the little thing's head. Jiujiu. The 7-colored phoenix named Little 7 was very happy. She finally met a human who was qualified to be her master. This human was gentle, had a noble bloodline, and was so beautiful. She was the ideal master for the 7-colored phoenix clan. Little 7 waved her wings to form a contract array. This was the highest level of symbiotic contract that magical beasts voluntarily formed. The so-called symbiotic contract was a contract that magical beasts took the initiative to form with humans. Once this contract was formed, the master and pet could share each other's life. For example, if your pet could live for 100,000 years, then you would have the same lifespan as your pet. At the same time, both master and pet could use half of the other's power. For example, Mingxi could now use the phoenix's innate ability, and Mingxi's bloodline ability could also be used by Little 7. The benefits of the symbiotic contract were not limited to this. If one of the master and pet was injured, the other could use the contract's power to heal the other. Although the injury could not be completely healed, it could at least heal about 50% of it. Feng Yanran and O'Brien could no longer compete to take the main responsibility. They were already stunned by the sudden change. Was this still the 7-colored phoenix that would rather die than submit? The one that refused to be contracted by anyone? This rainbow phoenix was just planning to die together with Zicheng. It did not expect that once Senior Mingxi came, he did not use any method and the rainbow phoenix would only form a contract with Senior Mingxi. Moreover, it was the most enviable symbiotic contract among all contracts. Was this because Zicheng's character was bad? Or was Senior Mingxi's character too good? This was a serious question. They had to think about it carefully. Chapter 287. Because Mingxi and the Rainbow Phoenix had completed the highest level of symbiotic contract, the Rainbow Phoenix's self-destruction stopped. The magical beasts in the sea calmed down. Although they didn't know what had happened, they were safe. So moved. Now they didn't have to die. The magical beasts collectively wiped their tears. They all had the urge to escape. Fengwu looked at the sea in confusion. The will to die had disappeared. The destructive power had also disappeared. What happened? Senior Mingxi. Congratulations on obtaining the divine beast Rainbow Phoenix. Ajur's eyes were calm as he congratulated Mingxi. O'Brien and Feng Yanran came back to their senses, and immediately went to Mingxi's side to congratulate him on successfully contracting with the divine beast. But when the two of them spoke, their eyes were filled with envy. Obviously, the impact on their hearts wasn't small. Ajur, help them get rid of the demon sealing bracelet, Mingxi said. Okay. Ajur agreed without hesitation. If they wanted to leave this place, it was necessary for them to recover their strength. It was easy to destroy the demon sealing bracelet. As long as they kept pouring magic into it, it would naturally disintegrate when the bracelet couldn't bear it anymore. Because of the way the demon sealing bracelet was unsealing, it was impossible to rely on one's own strength to undo it. It could only be done with the help of others. And the strength of the person who poured magic into it couldn't be too low. If the strength was too low, the person who poured magic into it would collapse before the demon sealing bracelet disintegrated. Although Ajur was only a first-year student, his true strength couldn't be calculated like this. No matter what, he was still the successor of the 4 god seals. To be able to become the host of the 4 God Seals, a juror naturally couldn't be at the same level as an ordinary first-year student. His hands exerted force and an endless amount of magic was poured into the demon sealing bracelet. The demon sealing bracelet's color became redder and redder. Finally, it turned into a pile of scrap iron and fell to the ground. Thank you, Ajur. Thank you, Junior Ajur. Feng Yanran and O'Brien felt that their magic power had been restored. They were pleasantly surprised and thanked Ajur. Ajur indifferently stood behind Mingxi, making it clear that he didn't want to pay attention to the two of them. The narrow-minded Ajur would never forget that it was because of these two that he had to disguise himself as a pirate. He had to suffer for several days in a pirate's lair, unable to eat or sleep well. He had made up his mind to find an opportunity to make these two pay for what they had done. Ah. What about Zicheng? Why is she gone? Feng Yanran inadvertently glanced at the direction where Zicheng had fallen, only to find that Zicheng, who was supposed to be lying on the ground, had disappeared. Feng Yanran was taken aback and could not help but exclaim. Although she was a little angry that Zicheng did not care about her and O'Brien's life and death, and insisted on forming a contract with the Rainbow Phoenix, and that she had recovered her magic power, but had never thought of saving her and O'Brien. This made Feng Yanran feel uncomfortable. However, although she was uncomfortable, Feng Yanran had never thought of letting Zicheng have an accident. What's going on? Is there some unknown danger here? O'Brien was secretly alert. Don't think about it. She ran away by herself, and she ran into the palace. I don't know why she ran away in such a hurry. Ajur had already seen that Zicheng had run away by herself, but he did not want to be nosy, so he was too lazy to say anything. Besides, Zicheng was not in their group, so why should he care about her? No. We can't let her go in there. Little Seven anxiously used her mind to contact Mingxi and shouted, "You're saying that we can't go in there? Is there some danger inside?" Mingxi asked directly. There is an important seal inside. Father's friend said that we can't break that seal, or else a demon will be released. There was another series of voices, but other than Mingxi, no one could understand what it was saying. It's really strange. She could clearly transform just now, and she even talked to us. Why is she not talking now? Feng Yanran said strangely. There were too many things just now, so I didn't think too much about it. Now that I think about it, mythological beasts do not have the ability to transform. How could she transform successfully? This is not allowed by the heavens. The girl we saw at the beginning should have been transformed by her using the phoenix's magic. In fact, the one standing in front of us has always been her original body. It's just that we were deceived by the illusion, so we thought it was a girl. O'Brien quickly figured out the crux of the matter, and explained to Feng Yanran in a low voice. I see. Then why can't we understand what she's saying now? We could clearly understand it just now. Feng Yanran asked again. O'Brien thought for a moment. It's probably because she has now recognized a master. In the future, unless she wants to, no one other than her master will be able to understand what she's saying. A bird like the Rainbow Phoenix, other than its master, looked down on any human beings. Just now, it was probably because they had intruded into her territory that she had transformed into a girl to talk to them, and wanted to drive them away. Now that she had a master, she would naturally not pay attention to the people she looked down on. If you want to understand what she's saying, you'll have to wait until she's in a good mood to talk to you. O'Brien had also read about these things in books, but in order not to let Feng Yanran know that she was looked down on by a bird, which would only make her feel uncomfortable, he did not tell Feng Yanran about these things. Ajur, you take them to find Xiaowu first. I'll go in and find Zicheng. After knowing what was sealed inside from Little Seven, even with Mingxi's shrewdness, he could not help but slightly change his expression. As soon as he finished speaking, without waiting for Ajur's reply, he left everyone behind and flew into the sky with the Rainbow Phoenix, flying into the huge palace complex. Ajur originally wanted to go with Mingxi, but unfortunately before he could say anything, he was already left behind by Mingxi. He wanted him to take these two people away, but where were they going? Where was the exit? Ajur looked around. Other than the hole they came from, there was no other way to leave. So, Were the three of them going to dig a way out themselves? Mingxi did not know what Ajur and the others were thinking. He was now following Little Seven's instructions and flying quickly, hoping to find Zicheng before the great mistake was cast. Otherwise, if there was a problem with the seal, it would undoubtedly be a disaster for the sea creatures. Zicheng held the flying scroll in his hand and followed the treasure-hunting mouse forward at top speed. The rainbow phoenix had already failed, and she did not want to lose another treasure inside. She did not expect Mingxi and Ajur to appear in this place and stop her. But it was good that they stopped her. She had a feeling that this contract had a 60% chance of failure. Chapter 288. If the blood contract failed, the rainbow phoenix would explode and die. Within a few hundred meters or even a few thousand meters around Evil Wind Island, all the islands and creatures would be destroyed. She was too impulsive just now. She knew that the things in this palace were very useful to her. The rainbow phoenix was obviously the divine beast in charge of guarding this place. If she couldn't contract or kill the rainbow phoenix, it would be impossible for her to get the things inside. Zicheng regretted that she didn't kill the seven-colored phoenix when it lost its ability to fight. Instead, she wanted to form a contract with it. If she knew that the beast was so stubborn, she wouldn't have wasted time to form a contract with it. Now that Mingxi and Ajur were here, the seven-colored phoenix clearly had nothing to do with her anymore. She couldn't let the treasures in this palace slip away. She had to get the treasures before anyone else entered this place. Thinking of this, she flew even faster. At the same time, she urged the treasure-hunting mouse to run faster. In Zicheng's mind, Feng Yanran and O'Brien weren't qualified to compete with her. The only two people she was afraid of were Mingxi and Ajur. Mingxi's origin was a mystery. There were rumors that she was a member of the royal family of the four big empires. She was very likely a descendant of the divine blood. Ajur was the successor of the four divine seals. Zicheng didn't know how strong he was. She could only guess that he wasn't weaker than her. If the two of them worked together, it would be very difficult for her to get the treasures under their noses. Therefore, she had to run faster now. Zicheng and Mingxi were running and chasing. One had the treasure-hunting mouse, and the other had the rainbow phoenix, so it was impossible for them to learn the path. After running in the palace for half an hour, she finally came to a room with blooming black lotuses. This room was very strange. There was only one pool in the room. The water in the pool was black, and there were a few black lotuses blooming in the black water. The fragrance of the black lotuses was light and elegant, but it carried a trace of evil qi, which made Zicheng secretly vigilant. Of course, Zicheng's target was not those few black lotuses. Those black lotuses had a name, which was Hell's Black Lotus. Legend had it that they only grew in places with dense devil qi. The Hell Black Lotus was a rare species in the devil realm. Ordinary devils simply couldn't obtain it. Who would have thought that a demonic plant like the Hell Black Lotus would grow in this human world? If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed it. Although the Hell's Black Lotus was precious, it was only to the demons of the demon realm. To humans, the Hell's Black Lotus was not only a bad thing, but also a poison that should not be touched. Once touched, it was very likely that one would be demonized into a monster. Of course, Zicheng wouldn't want such a thing. Her real target was the long sword in the Black Lotus pool. On the hilt of the sword, Long Fei and Fengwu used the ancient language to carve the two words demon suppression. It was enough to show that this sword was at least an item from ancient times. The body of the sword was completely black, but there wasn't the slightest trace of devil qi surrounding the sword. It could be seen that this sword had not been demonized. Demon suppression sword? Zicheng softly read out the name of the sword. System, if I pull out this sword, will it affect me in any way? Zicheng was not a fool. The two words demon suppression on the sword were so big. It could be seen that this sword was left here to seal. She was worried that if she rashly took away this sealed sword, it would affect her. She didn't want to release a big guy that she couldn't deal with. Host, this sword is called demon suppression. It is a holy weapon. The system sensed that the demon being suppressed under this sword is not a small matter. If the host pulls out this sword, the entire ocean world and the nearby island countries will be affected. It is very likely that rivers of blood will flow, and there will be endless slaughter. Because the host has the support of the system space, even if the host pulls out the demon suppression sword, it will not affect the host. The system's voice carried a trace of mechanical tone. That means there won't be any harm to her, right? Zicheng faintly smiled. She didn't care about the consequences of pulling out the demon suppression sword. As long as it didn't affect her, there was no problem. For Zicheng, as long as it didn't affect her, she didn't care about rivers of blood. At worst, when her strength reached a certain level, she would kill this demon to avenge those innocent people who died tragically. After making up her mind, Zicheng quickly calmed down. What she needed to do now was to quickly pull out the sword. She didn't have much time. If Ming Shi and Ajur arrived, they definitely wouldn't give her the chance to pull out the sword. She strode to the edge of the lotus pond and used the flight scroll to make a light leap. Her entire body gently landed on the water surface. With the protection of the flight scroll, she was not worried that she would fall into the black lotus pond. Standing on the water surface, she stretched out her slender hand, wanting to pull out the sword. "Stop!" An unfamiliar male voice shouted. Then an invisible sword chi attacked her. Zicheng could feel the terrifying sword chi and didn't dare to be careless. She could only jump back and return to the shore. "How dare you break the seal? If you don't want to live, don't think that you can drag everyone on Bewitching Wind Island to die with you." The person who came was Bewitching Wind. He originally wanted to obtain the 2 hell black lotuses, but when he saw someone trying to pull out the demon suppression sword, he was so scared that he almost couldn't recover. The first generation Bewitching Wind was one of Longzagammer's followers. After Longzagammer left, the first generation Bewitching Wind was ordered to stay here to guard the seal. Other than Bewitching Wind, there was also a good friend of Longzagammer's who was said to be a very powerful 7-colored phoenix. According to the legends, Longzagammer wanted to form a contract with the 5-colored phoenix. Unfortunately, his bloodline and appearance didn't meet the 5-colored phoenix's requirements to choose a host. In the end, although Longzagammer didn't form a contract with the 5-colored phoenix, he still became good friends with it. Otherwise, the phoenix race wouldn't have sent someone to guard the seal here. Every generation of Bewitching Wind knew the secret under Bewitching Wind Island. They stayed on Bewitching Wind Island for no other reason than to guard the seal. Of course, they also really liked the lucrative career of being a pirate. Xiaoqi's father was Longzagammer's good friend, the powerful 5-colored phoenix. Xiaoqi's bloodline was even stronger than her father's. She evolved from a 5-colored phoenix to a 7-colored phoenix, becoming an auspicious beast among the divine beasts. Xiaoqi's father kicked her to this place when she was young to guard this place for him. Other than telling her to be careful of humans, he didn't say much. Xiaoqi's father accompanied her mother to the spiritual realm to play. He probably forgot that his daughter was still in the human realm to guard the seal for him. Chapter 289. Yao Feng knew that apart from the previous generations of Yao Fengs, there was an elite from the Phoenix clan guarding this place. However, he had never seen the elite from the Phoenix clan. He didn't even know that Xiaoqi's father had been replaced by Xiaoqi. Some time ago, he found a piece of ore from outer space in the deep sea. He collected thousands of precious materials and planned to use the ore as a base to forge a holy weapon. It was easy to forge a holy weapon. However, with the help of the ore and the blacksmith master that the 3 brothers had hired, it was not impossible. Unfortunately, the blacksmith master wanted to use the Hell's Black Lotus as a reward. Yao Feng knew that the blacksmith master didn't want to help him. That was why he came up with this plan to make Yao Feng back off. Others might not be able to fulfill such a request. However, it was not impossible for Yao Feng. The previous generation of Yao Feng had been to this place before. He had seen the Hell's Black Lotus. In order to get the blacksmith master to help him, Yao Feng naturally wanted to break the seal. Although he wanted to get the Hell's Black Lotus, he had never thought of breaking the seal. He knew how powerful the thing under the seal was. He wouldn't be able to break the seal unless he had a death wish. However, Yao Feng did not expect that when he finally managed to control the essence of water and was able to pluck the Hell's Black Lotus without fear of the devil chi, he discovered that an outsider had broken into this sealed land. Furthermore, This woman was planning to destroy the seal. Yao Feng was shocked and furious. How could he let Zicheng, the culprit who almost caused the destruction of Yao Feng Island, off? If I'm not wrong, you're the owner of Yao Feng Island. Yao Feng. Zicheng had never seen Yao Feng before, but she quickly guessed his identity. It was all thanks to Yao Feng's weapon that she was able to guess his identity so quickly. Everyone knew that Yao Feng's weapon of choice was a saber. Even though he was a sword master, he used a saber. Furthermore, it was a demon saber forged from demon bones. There were demonic beasts and demon beasts in this world. Most demon beasts were bloodthirsty and cruel. They were born to fight. They lived in the demon world and rarely came to the human world. The demon blade in Yao Feng's hand was made by the first generation Yao Feng using the bones of a demon beast that had entered the saint stage. It was considered a very powerful weapon. Good eyesight. That's right. I am Yao Feng. I don't care who you are. Since you dared to break the seal here, you will die. Yao Feng looked at Zicheng and said overbearingly. Yao Feng wanted to kill Zicheng long ago. Although he also liked beautiful women, and Zicheng was a rare beauty, so what? As long as she dared to break the seal, even if she was as beautiful as a goddess, she would still die here. Zicheng took out his staff of life and used his 5 elemental attacks, intending to gain the initiative by striking first. Yao Feng was a master of the Big Sword sect. How could he be afraid of a junior like her? He unleashed a torrent of sword chi towards Zicheng. He used only his sword chi to break through all of Zicheng's attacks. As a master of the Big Sword sect, it was impossible for him not to have his own sword intent. The sword intent that Yao Feng had comprehended was water and wind. His sword techniques were like a torrential flood and as fast as the wind. To deal with a nobody like Zicheng who wasn't even a great magician, Yao Feng didn't even need to use his sword intent. Just his sword chi was enough to make Zicheng break out in cold sweat. Although Zicheng had the Staff of Life, in the face of absolute power, even a god artifact wouldn't be useful. It was like giving a child a super god artifact. How could you expect that child to immediately kill a god? Similarly, Zicheng was only an intermediate magician. Although a semi-god artifact was useful, she couldn't use it with her current strength. When she fought with Xiaoqi, she didn't end up in such a sorry state, because Xiaoqi didn't want to kill her. Xiaoqi only wanted to chase her away. Otherwise, with Xiaoqi's strength, he could have burned her to ashes with his life flame. Yao Feng's strength was more than 1 realm higher than Zicheng's. If she wanted to defeat Yao Feng, she would have to use the system to exchange for an item that could instantly decide the outcome of the battle. Otherwise, it was almost impossible. However, an item that could defeat someone who was a few realms higher than her could only be exchanged with a few points. She had already used up most of her points to deal with the 7-colored phoenix. Now, it was impossible for her to use her points to buy an item that could decide the outcome of the battle. Zicheng carefully dodged a sword shadow. Although she dodged quickly, she still couldn't outrun Yao Feng's sword. Just as she dodged the attack, another attack hit her shoulder. She fell into the water of the Black Lotus Pond. Zicheng wouldn't have ended up in such a sorry state. With her strength and all the good items on her, she could have escaped even if she couldn't defeat Yao Feng. Unfortunately, she forcefully activated her blood contract with the 7-colored phoenix, and was forcefully interrupted by a juror. This caused her to suffer a backlash, and she suffered severe internal injuries. Although she had drunk health potions and recovery potions on her way here, her injuries were too severe. They couldn't be healed instantly. It was normal for Zicheng to be beaten up when she was severely injured. Even the female lead couldn't be invincible in this world right from the start. When Zicheng fell into the Black Lotus Pond, Mingxi finally arrived. By the time Mingxi arrived, Zicheng had already sunk into the pond. There was no movement in the pond at all. Seeing another intruder, Yao Feng wanted to turn around and fight again. However, when he saw a certain life form beside Mingxi, his eyes widened in shock. His eyes were filled with disbelief and he thought, I'm not dreaming, right? Lord Phoenix. I'm not dreaming, right? I actually saw Lord Phoenix's beast shadow. His father and grandfather had never even seen a phoenix's feather before. He was better than his father and grandfather in this aspect. Yao Feng was so excited that he looked like he had seen a superstar. There were even pink bubbles in his eyes. Your friend? Mingxi was getting goosebumps from the muscular man's stare. He turned around and asked his new favorite pet, "Is he your friend?" "I don't know this guy. However, I think I know who he is." Little Seven tilted his head and thought for a moment. Then he transmitted his voice to Mingxi. "Are you this generation's Yao Feng?" Little Seven's voice entered Yao Feng's ears. It wasn't a squabble. It was using the common language of the continent. As expected, you could only understand what the seven-colored phoenix was saying when it wanted you to. "Yes, that's me. I didn't expect to see Lord Phoenix's true face. If my father and grandfather knew about this, they would be so jealous of me." Yao Feng wiped his tears excitedly. If the man who was wiping his tears didn't admit that he was Evil Wind, the leader of the Red Skull, Mingxi wouldn't have been able to connect a pirate who had killed countless people with this guy who was wiping his tears in admiration of his pet. Chapter 290. There was a reason why Yao Feng was so excited to see Little Seven. When Yao Feng was very young, his father would tell him the story of how the first Yao Feng traveled the world with Longzigamer as a bedtime story. In the story, there were a few people who appeared frequently, and one of them was the five-colored phoenix. The five-colored phoenix helped a friend fight against the demon race, and after the battle, she promised to help guard Bewitching Wind Island. Little Yao Feng liked the story very much when he was young. What he admired the most was people who were willing to sacrifice themselves for the sake of their brothers. How could he not be excited when he finally saw the legendary Lord Phoenix? However, this fellow would never have thought that the Lord Phoenix in his imagination, who would risk her life to protect her friends and the human world, had already brought her wife out to play. Poor Little Seven, on the other hand, had been thrown here by his unscrupulous father to guard this sealed land on his behalf. Little Seven understood that this guy was treating him as his father. However, Little Seven was too lazy to explain. "Yao Feng, let me ask you, did you see an annoying woman come here just now?" Little Seven was still holding a grudge against Zicheng for forcing him to contract with him. His dignity as a mythical beast could not be trampled on by a mere human. If he did not make that despicable human pay the price, he would write his name backwards. An annoying woman? Yao Feng was stunned at first. However, he soon understood who Lord Phoenix was talking about. Yes, a woman came here. Furthermore, that woman wanted to pull out the demon-suppressing sword that Lord Longzigamer personally placed here, and release the sealed demon general. That woman must be a spy that infiltrated the human world. Yao Feng said solemnly. If she wasn't a spy, why would she pull out the demon-suppressing sword? Although the sword was very precious, the entire world on the sea might turn into hell after pulling it out. In this world, there was no other Lord Longzigamer to seal this demon again. And after the seal was removed, the first ones to fall into hell would definitely be all the living beings on Bewitching Wind Island. That woman wielded the demon-suppressing sword, and would definitely be the first target to be attacked. Her attitude of pulling out the sword was so firm that she was certain that nothing would happen to her. To be so sure, unless she was on the same side as the people of the Devil Realm, why would a dignified ancient devil general let a human go? One had to know that that person had been sealed by the humans back then. After breaking the seal, it was already merciful for that person not to kill all of the humans in revenge. Zicheng, don't accuse me like that. Your whole family is traitors of the Devil Realm. Where is that woman? I want to teach her a lesson myself. Little Seven was too lazy to care about what Yao Feng said. What it wanted to do now was to drag that bad woman out and beat her up. Yao Feng pointed at the Black Lotus Pond and said, "He was too heavy-handed just now. I knocked him down." If he had known that His Excellency would want to teach her a lesson personally, he would have left her alive no matter what. He was done for. He had killed the person that Lord Phoenix wanted to deal with. Would Lord Phoenix bear a grudge against him? Yao Feng's heart was in a mess. He was unsure of Lord Phoenix's attitude towards this matter. Mingxi, on the other hand, was still wondering where Zicheng had gone. He did not expect to hear such an answer from the demonic wind gap. This is the place where the ancient devil general was sealed? Mingxi pointed at the Black Lotus Pond. Little Seven had already told him the secret of this place when they were on the way here. He did not expect that a pirate's nest would be related to Longzagammer, who was almost deified thousands of years ago. Moreover, there was an ancient devil general sealed on Demonback Island. If Little Seven had not told him this, he would not have believed that the most powerful person by the ancient devil's side would be sealed in the underground of a pirate's nest. Yes, that person was sealed here by Lord Longzagammer personally. Look at the water. He is indeed an ancient devil general. His demonic aura has polluted the original spiritual pond and turned it into a demonic pond. He even bloomed a demonic flower like the Hell's Black Lotus. Such pure demonic aura could only be possessed by the earliest few ancient devils. She didn't float to the surface? Mingxi asked again. No, she didn't even flop. She just sank to the bottom, the demonic wind said, seeing that Mingxi and his Lord Phoenix had come in together. Mingxi squinted his eyes and pondered for a moment. He did not believe that Zicheng would die so easily. Although he did not spend much time with Zicheng, he could tell that Zicheng was not an ordinary person. There would always be something special about her. For example, the poison that she used to deal with Little Seven was very special. It was not that there were no special medicines that could work on mythical beasts in this world. However, no matter what kind of medicine it was not something that Zicheng, who came from a small aristocratic family, could possess. He had already sent people to investigate Zicheng's background. He had also found out everything about her since she was young. What made him feel the strangest was that Zicheng seemed to have a special charm that made people like to get close to her. They were even willing to ignore the interests of their families for her. For the aristocratic children who had been taught that the interests of their families were more important than anything, it was a huge problem for them to ignore their families for a woman. Moreover, there were more than one person who did so. No matter how he thought about it, Mingxi felt that this woman was not simple. There was another woman who had the same problem as her. That was Irene. Back in the tomb of the god of sin. The fact that Irene was able to emerge as the final victor in the tomb of the god of sin while being surrounded by so many experts, and the way she escaped from the hands of so many experts, made Mingxi have no choice but to focus on Irene. In the past decade, more and more people from the demon realm, cultivation realm, and blood clan had infiltrated the human world. The Four Empires and Notre Dame du Starlight had sent a large number of people to investigate openly and secretly every year. Mingxi had already noticed some problems with Zicheng and Irene, but the two of them had never known about it. Although the results of the investigation later showed that these two people did not show any signs of being possessed, the abnormalities of these two people still made Mingxi unable to relax his surveillance of these two people. He was even more afraid of Zicheng's ability to disturb people's minds. Mingxi could not believe that Zicheng would die so easily in the hands of Yao Feng, because of all the different things about her. As long as there was no corpse, Mingxi could not believe that Zicheng would die so easily. Reality proved that Mingxi's intuition was right. Zicheng was indeed not dead. The moment she fell, she had already moved the demon-repelling orb out of the space. Chapter 291. Demon-repelling orb, a defensive treasure. It can protect the user from being corroded by demon-repelling orb. The last time Zicheng accepted a quest in the Adventurers Guild, he had exchanged it from the system to complete the quest. He didn't expect it to come in handy now. With the demon-repelling orb, Zicheng wouldn't die. Not only would she not die, but she was even more determined to pull out the demon-suppressing sword. She was spending her points too quickly. Without points, she didn't feel safe at all. She had to get the demon-suppressing sword and exchange it for points with the system shop. Yes, exchange points. Zicheng had been hesitating whether to use the demon-suppressing sword herself or sell it to the system shop. However, when she saw that she didn't have many points left, she didn't need to think about it anymore. She wasn't a sword master anyway. She had no use for a sword. She might as well sell it to the system shop for something she wanted. She was quite confident in the system shop's products. After deciding who the demon-suppressing sword would belong to, she grabbed the sword and pulled it out from the water. This sword was a sealed item. Once it was pulled out, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, Zicheng did not care so much. In this world, Natural selection was the survival of the fittest. Which expert did not step on countless blood and bones to climb up? What she did was not wrong. In the future, when she was strong enough, she would definitely avenge the dead. From the moment she pulled out the sword, the entire bewitching Wind Island began to shake. A surge of demon-repelling aura erupted from the Blackwater Lotus Pond. The sword hadn't been fully pulled out, but there was already so much demon-repelling aura. As expected of an ancient demon-repelling general, even Longza Gamer had to spend a lot of effort to seal it. That woman didn't die. Seeing the Blackwater Lotus Pond, Bewitching Wind immediately understood what was going on. Zicheng. Mingxi's eyes darkened. This woman suddenly, a sword of light appeared in Mingxi's hand. It shone with a faint light, and one could tell at a glance that it was extraordinary. This was the weapon that Mingxi usually used, a legendary demon sword. Although it was only at the legendary level, its power was not inferior to a divine weapon. Otherwise, it wouldn't have qualified to be the sword of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom's prince. Mingxi's sword-wielding hand moved slightly, and a powerful force shot out from the sword towards a certain spot in the Black Lotus Pond, knocking a purple figure out of the water. Ah! Zicheng screamed and fell from the water to the ground. After being hit by this attack, her injuries were even more serious. Her face was as pale as a ghost, and she spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Mingxi Sr. Zicheng did not expect Mingxi to be the one who had injured her. In her eyes, Mingxi had always been a very friendly person. No matter who it was, he was always polite and gentle. Even if he did not like people, he would not speak ill of them. He always had a faint smile on his face. But now, this gentle senior was looking at her coldly, as if he was looking at a dead person. Mingxi ignored her. Although the person who had drawn the sword had been sent flying, the sword was already halfway out, and the seal was still damaged. Although it was not completely broken, the seal had loosened quite a bit. Not only did the demon chi not decrease, but it also increased. The entire Bewitching Wind Island was surrounded by the demon chi. The water essence that Bewitching Wind had prepared to harvest the Hell Black Lotus came in handy. The water essence formed a transparent protective layer that protected Bewitching Wind. It prevented him from being harmed and corroded by the demon chi. Mingxi's bloodline was strong to begin with, so he wasn't afraid of the devil chi that soared into the sky. Little Seven didn't have any reaction either. She was an auspicious beast, and represented the auspiciousness of heaven and earth. There was nothing in this world that could corrupt her. Zicheng had a treasure like the demon-repelling orb, so of course she was fine. The four of them were fine, but the others were in trouble. The demon chi spread everywhere, and the first to suffer was the underground palace. Now the entire underground palace was surrounded by the demon chi. Ajur and the other two were waiting outside the palace for Mingxi's return, because they could not think of a way to leave. Now they were in great danger. In order to prevent them from being invaded by the demonic aura, Ajur had no choice but to release the seal of the four god seals and summon the azure flames of the scepter of summer. After releasing the seal of summer, his power increased by a tiny bit. Furthermore, the power of summer represented destruction and purification. The blue flame's power prevented the demon chi from getting close to the three of them. Mingxi wanted to use the Hellfire Red Lotus to purify all the demon chi. But although the Hellfire Red Lotus was strong, it had a small weakness. It attacked indiscriminately. Anything that was surrounded by the demon chi would become the target of the Hellfire Red Lotus. There were so many people on Bewitching Wind Island. Although most of them were pirates, there were also fishermen and maidservants who were forced to become slaves. If he released the Hellfire, there would not be a single person left alive on the island. In desperation, Ajur could use the blue flame's power to protect the three of them from the demon chi, but he could not think of a better way to solve the problem. His power mainly focused on destruction. He wanted to use destruction to purify. If only Xiaowu was here. Xiaowu's power seemed to focus on purification. If Xiaowu was here, it should work. What was Fengwu doing when Ajur was thinking about her? She was frowning as she watched the chaos. The demon chi rolled and covered the sky. Xiaochun could not stay in Fengwu's dantian any longer. It wanted to eat all the food. It was only because its master did not give the order that it did not act recklessly. Screams sounded on the island. The demon chi was very harmful to humans. If they were corroded by the demon chi too much, they would become a monster that was neither human nor demon. They would lose all reason, and only have the will to kill. The demon beasts around Bewitching Wind Island quickly ran away. Even the water demon beast that brought Fengwu and the others here had no choice but to run under the strong demon chi. The creatures under the sea were very unlucky today. First, they were scared by Xiao Qi's explosion and ran for their lives. When the explosion finally passed, another crisis appeared. Was it easy for them to swim around like this? Was it easy? Take me to Senior Mingxi, Fengwu said to Xiaochun. She had a feeling that Senior Mingxi and the others must be at the source of the demon chi. Xiaochun immediately flew out of Fengwu's dantian and led the way. All the demon chi was purified when it came into contact with Xiaochun. Because of this, the place Xiaochun flew past became a rare pure land. Many people who were corroded by the demon chi wanted to get close to Fengwu and Xiaochun. Chapter 292. Unfortunately, the demonic chi was not easy to deal with. After Xiaochun and Fengwu left, the areas that had been purified were immediately filled with new demonic chi. Only the despairing humans were left crying in the demonic chi. Of course, there was more to the underground palace than the one that Zicheng had asked the treasure-hunting mouse to dig. As the human who was guarding the seal, Yao Feng naturally knew about a secret tunnel that led to the underground palace that no one else knew about. Only the Yao Feng of each generation knew where the tunnel was. Even the two vice-captains did not know about it. The tunnel that the treasure-hunting mouse dug had been blocked by Ming Shi, but the tunnel that Yao Feng knew about was still there. In the past, it would have been difficult to find out where the secret passageway was from Yao Feng. But now Xiaochun didn't need to ask Yao Feng to figure it out. Demonic chi kept seeping out of the tunnel, so it was much easier to find it. Xiaochun brought Fengwu to the first floor of the underground palace. The first floor of the underground palace had been filled with demonic chi. The entire tunnel was dark, and they could not even see the path clearly. There were countless pirates lying on the ground. They were all groaning in pain as the demonic chi invaded their bodies. The eruption of the devil chi only lasted for a moment. The people in the basement were the ones who suffered the most. Due to the limitations of the space here, they were tortured by the devil chi to the point that they couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Fengwu followed Xiaochun to a secret stone room. There was nothing else in the room except for a few stone coffins. The room was where Yao Feng's bones were buried. Every generation of Yao Feng would be moved into the room after they died. There were exactly 5 stone coffins in the room, and each of them had the same name engraved on them. The only difference was that the prefixes used were different. For example, the first generation Yao Feng, the second generation Yao Feng, the third generation Yao Feng, and so on until the 5th generation Yao Feng. At this moment, first generation Evil Wind's sarcophagus had obviously been moved by someone. There was actually a long flight of stairs under the sarcophagus. There was no need to think about the person who moved the sarcophagus. It could only be first generation Evil Wind. He must have moved it himself when he went down to the underground palace. This stone room was clearly a forbidden area of Bewitching Wind Island. Even the 2 vice commanders weren't qualified to enter this place. The person in charge of guarding this place had long since been corroded by the demon chi and collapsed to the ground. This was why Fengwu had been able to enter this place so easily. The devilish chi was spreading up from the bottom of the stone stairs. Fengwu paused for a moment, then led Xiaochun down the stone stairs without any hesitation. While Fengwu was rushing towards the underground palace, Mingxi was not idle either. He was trying his best to repair the seal. The power of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom's bloodline was the best when it came to seals and barriers. Mingxi stepped on the water and approached the half-drawn suppressing demon sword. He formed a hand seal and forcefully sent the seal into the suppressing demon sword. The suppressing demon sword shook violently a few times, then slowly sank down. The devilish chi that was surging wildly was becoming smaller and smaller. Mingxi's hands did not stop moving. He kept using the power of the seal to repair it. Just as the seal was about to be completed, something happened. The demon sword shook even more violently, then began to move up inch by inch. Mingxi's face changed. He began to increase the output of his demonic chi. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was that he had to stop the demon general from being born. Otherwise, with the demon general's power, there would be a catastrophe. Mingxi's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. His hands were shaking, but he could not stop the sword from moving up inch by inch. Although Mingxi's efforts had slowed down the speed of the sword, it was still moving up. It did not look like it was going to stop at all. Yao Feng hated Zicheng to death. It was all because of that B***tch. If it wasn't for her, things would not have turned out this way. Little Seven was worried about her master. She did not have time to deal with this enemy of hers. Zicheng took out a few life potions and drank them. Finally, the wounds on her body did not hurt as much. Her face also regained some color. She did not think things would be so bad. She felt that the suppressing demon sword was her destiny. She felt that the suppressing demon sword was destined to be hers. Why did things turn out this way? The battle between Mingxi and the demon general was coming to an end. Even if Mingxi tried his best, he could not stop the demon general from being born. The suppressing demon sword suddenly rose from the Black Lotus Pond. Then a black-haired, black-clothed handsome man slowly appeared from the Black Lotus Pond. Mingxi and Little Seven, along with Yao Feng, took a few big steps back. This person was very, very dangerous. The black-haired, black-clothed man's eyes were red. When he looked at them, it was as if he was looking into hell and an endless sea of blood. The man's face was very handsome. The ancient devils were the first batch of devils to be born in the devil world. Their bodies and faces were perfect. They were very strong. Every one of them had the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. They were like God spirits. They were really favored by the heavens. Human, die. The man said those words coldly. He waved his hand, and a huge amount of demonic power went towards Mingxi and Little Seven. The man did not move. His movements were very gentle. It was like he was just waving his hand. The power was so strong that Mingxi could not fight back. Mingxi used his sword to block the demonic power. He, his pet, and Yao Feng were all knocked out of the room where the demon general was sealed. Ah! Yao Feng screamed. She was sent flying to the ground. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was even paler. In order to repair the seal, Mingxi had used most of her demonic power. In order to block the attack, she had used up the rest of her demonic power. Her injuries were much worse than Yao Feng's. Jiujiu! Little Seven cried out anxiously. He spread his wings and a gentle ball of light surrounded the man and the pet. Within the ball of light, Mingxi's body was recovering quickly. Even his depleted mana was gradually recovering. That was the benefit of the symbiotic contract. A person and a pet could heal each other. Although they could not heal all of their wounds, they could heal at least 50% of their wounds. Zicheng could only lie on the ground and watch all this happen. She did not expect the thing under the seal to be so sick. She did not know if it was because Zicheng's heroine halo was too strong, but the demon general did not attack her. It let her sit on the side and watch. The demon general ignored Zicheng, but it did not ignore Mingxi and the others. Mingxi had just recovered a little. The demon general looked at Mingxi and the others coldly. It was like it was looking at some lowly ants. Chapter 293. He extended a hand that was so perfect that it looked as if it had been carved from white jade, and flicked it toward Mingxi and the others. A black ball of light that was about the size of a basketball shot toward them with a flash of red lightning. The black ball of light contained a terrifying destructive power. Mingxi knew that he would not be able to block such a powerful attack, even if he was at his peak. It was no wonder that he was the ancient devil general. He was indeed powerful. He had just broken out of the seal, but he already had the power to kill Lin Fan easily. Although Mingxi knew that he could not dodge it, he would not give up without trying. He raised his sword and stared at the black ball of light. Jiao jiao. Little Seven flapped her wings and flew in front of Mingxi. She spat out a seven-colored flame from her mouth. Although the flame was not big, it contained a shocking amount of energy. This was the seven-colored phoenix's spiritual fire, the seven-colored glazed flame. The seven-colored glazed flame was the spiritual fire that only seven-colored phoenixes possessed. It was extremely powerful. Little Seven was still a child to the phoenixes. The appearance of a young girl in the beginning was just a disguise for the sake of face. With her age, although the power of her flames was not strong enough to fight against the ancient demon generals, it was not weak to the point that she did not have any fighting power. In order to protect her master, Little Seven used her strongest attack, which was her spiritual fire. The seven-colored glazed flame and the black ball of light met in the air. The two types of energy collided, and a huge explosion shook the entire underground palace. The ground of the underground palace began to shake, as if an earthquake had occurred. Mingxi tried to protect Little Seven, and the others with the power of the sword in his hand. Unfortunately, he did not succeed. He had used up too much energy. If he was in the outside world, he could use the power of the moon to heal himself and recover his mana quickly. Unfortunately, he was underground and could not feel the power of the moon. He could not recover on his own. The two of them and the pet were sent flying again. This time, they were less injured than before. As the black ball of light did not hit them directly, although Mingxi and the others were still affected by the explosion, they were not fatally injured. Cough cough. Yao Feng spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. He felt as if his internal organs were about to shift. He did not think that he would be left behind. It was all thanks to Lord Phoenix blocking the attack. Otherwise, Lord Phoenix and the others might still have a chance to survive, but he, Yao Feng, might have died here. Mingxi supported himself with his sword and stood up. His face was full of vigilance as he stared at the black-clothed man's next move. What's going on? Where did the two of them come from? Ajur had already guessed that something must have happened in the palace when he saw the demonic qi leaking out. Although he believed in Mingxi's strength, Mingxi had Xiaoqi's protection. No matter how he thought about it, it was impossible for him to not be Zicheng's opponent. Although he knew very well that Mingxi was not in any danger, he still felt uneasy. Especially as the devil qi became more and more serious. The uneasiness in his heart became even more obvious. In the end, Ajur still could not let go of the uneasiness in his heart. He ignored Feng Yanran and O'Brien's persuasion, and insisted on entering the palace to check out the situation. Feng Yanran also felt a chill down her spine. She felt that there was great danger in the palace. No matter what, she did not want to go in. Feng Yanran did not want to go in. She also did not want to see Ajur go in. Among the three of them, the only one who could stop the demonic qi was Ajur. If Ajur left, she did not know what she and O'Brien would do. Fortunately, Ajur did not want to leave them alone. He took out 2 red lotuses. The lotuses were very small. They were only the size of a baby's palm. There was a trace of fire in the center of the flowers. This trace of fire was a trace of power left on it by the summer scepter, Song Yan. With the protection of this trace of power, Feng Yanran and Ajur's safety was guaranteed. They did not continue to persuade Ajur to stay. After getting rid of the 2 burdens, Ajur rushed into the palace without stopping. A huge explosion gave him a fright. He didn't dare to stop for even half a step and increased his speed. Finally, he caught up. At this moment, Ajur was standing in front of Mingxi. He looked at Yao Feng and then at the demon general, who was obviously not to be trifled with. His eyes were filled with doubt and caution. Now is not the time to talk about this. Stop him. Don't let him leave here. I need some time to recover. Help me stall him. Seeing the helper come in, Mingxi did not even have the time to ask him why he was still in the underground palace. With Ajur's help, Mingxi could finally recover a little. Although he did not know what had happened, Mingxi was right. Now was not the time to ask about this. The black-haired man was surrounded by demonic qi. It was obvious that he was not simple. He was surrounded by murderous qi. It was obvious that he was a demon who killed people like flies. Okay. Ajur agreed without hesitation. The energy of the 4 god seals. The demon general's red eyes flashed with something, but it was immediately replaced by murderous qi. Who are you? Ajur did not dare to be careless. He looked at the man cautiously. Heir of the 4 god seals die. Ajur's appearance did not determine whether he could beat the demon general. At least he did a good job of pulling the demon general, and bought Mingxi precious time to recover. While Ajur was dealing with the demon general, Mingxi quickly took out a health potion from his space ring to recover his injuries and mana. Ajur's identity as the heir of the 4 god seals had been exposed. It seemed to have attracted the demon general's attention. The demon general did not hold back. The demonic chi around him turned into 2 dragons and attacked Ajur. The dragons were formed by demonic chi. They were completely black. Only their eyes were red. They looked exactly the same as the demon general. Ajur used the Imperial Sky technique to dodge the attack of one of the dragons. Xiao Qi turned into a 10-meter-long phoenix and fought with a black dragon. Neither side was giving way. The roar of the dragon and the cry of the phoenix filled the entire space. Although the black dragon was formed by demonic chi, it had murderous intent. It was not easy to deal with it. Xiao Qi used all her strength to fight the black dragon to a standstill. On the other hand, Ajur was relying on the Summer Scepter's ash flame. Otherwise, with just Ajur's strength, he would have been torn to shreds by the dragons. The 2 dragons fought fiercely with Ajur and Xiao Qi. The demon general just stood at the side and watched. The murderous intent in his eyes did not lessen. He did not have any intention to step forward. It gave people the feeling that he was playing with a few stupid mice. Mingxi drank the potion and ate a spirit fruit that Fengwu gave him. His injuries were mostly healed. His mana was also fully recovered. Chapter 294. The Devil General took a deep look at Mingxi and waved his hand again. The black ball of light that was exactly the same as the last time appeared again, and mercilessly shot towards Mingxi. Mingxi channeled his demonic power, and swung his sword at the ball of light. He used the saint-level sword technique, and the sword intent with the strongest offensive power among the several sword intents he had comprehended. The sword chi and the black ball of light collided. This time there was an explosion. Mingxi used his sword to block the explosion. The entire palace shook again. Not only that, but even Evil Wind Island shook violently. The people on the island who were still fighting against the demon aura felt their fear increase by several levels. You are not bad. Descendant of God's blood. You are very talented. Unfortunately, you will die. The demon general's voice was cold and stiff. He was like an emotionless machine. It seemed that only demon aura and murderous aura could be felt from him. No other emotions could be found from him. After the demon general said those words coldly, his hair suddenly changed. The black hair that was growing on the demon general's head suddenly seemed to break in the middle and fly away from his body. His hair was very long, longer than many women's. It was unknown if it was because he had not taken care of it for thousands of years, but his hair was almost touching the ground. Because his hair had broken off on its own. His originally long hair had become waist-length hair. Even so, his hair seemed to be constantly growing. Soon, the hair that had flown away from his body grew back to its original length and stayed quietly on his back. On the other hand, Mingxi was in trouble. Those severed hairs were not simple at all. They danced in the air, and tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of black hairs surrounded Mingxi. Mingxi looked at the dense hair, and saw that each strand of hair was attached to a powerful demon aura. The demon aura was like its owner, full of murderous aura. He held his sword with one hand, and looked at the hair that was attacking him. Finally the two met. The black hair carried murderous aura and attacked Mingxi. Mingxi swung his sword and cut the hair that was attacking him into ashes. If you thought the demon general's hair was so easy to deal with, you were wrong. The gray hair that had been turned into ashes actually revived in the air. They formed new strands of hair, and flew towards Mingxi again. Mingxi kept attacking with his sword. Unfortunately, the hair seemed to have an immortal body. No matter how he attacked, he could not kill it. He even used a saint-level skill twice, but it was still useless. Mingxi's eyes darkened. He did not hold his sword. Suddenly, an egg-sized flame appeared in his hand. The flame was 7-colored. It was Little Seven's life spirit fire, the 7-colored glass flame. Because of the symbiotic contract, Mingxi could also summon the rainbow glaze flame to fight for him. He released the rainbow glaze flame, and the rainbow glaze flame immediately had a certain suppressive effect on the strands of hair that were filled with magic power. Those strands of hair that could constantly regenerate finally stopped regenerating, and his attack finally had an effect. Mingxi heaved a sigh of relief. It was good as long as it was effective. He was most afraid that he could not find a way to deal with the strands of hair. Just as Ming-Shi and the other two were fighting the demon general, another person entered the underground palace. The person who came was none other than the Fengwu girl. After going through a long flight of stairs, she finally arrived at the place where the demon aura gathered. Fengwu came down from the passage of the demon aura. When she came down, she went straight to a room in the palace. This room was right next to the room where the demon general was sealed. One could imagine that the moment Fengwu stepped into the room, she had already noticed the battle outside. She and Xiaoqun walked a few steps out of the room. As expected, she saw the person she was looking for in the courtyard. Senior Ming-Shi. Fengwu's eyes lit up when she saw Ming-Shi. Xiaowu. Ming-Shi was distracted by her voice. He did not expect to see someone who was not supposed to be here. Xiaowu. Ajur exclaimed in surprise. He had been thinking about how great it would be if Xiaowu was here. He did not expect to see Xiaowu here. Quick. Quick, Xiaowu. Use your power to purify the demon aura here. Ajur's power was too destructive. A small island like this with so many living creatures was the worst place for him to attack. Once he went all out, the island might even sink. Ming-Shi's situation was similar. Although Ming-Shi was strong, he could only unleash his full power in a place where the moon could shine. In such a dark place, Ming-Shi was at a disadvantage. If it was not for the fact that Ming-Shi could not unleash his full power, he would not have been suppressed to this extent. Both of their strongest combatants had their combat power reduced by half due to various reasons. How could Ajur not be excited when he saw Fengwu who had the power to purify under such circumstances? Xiaoqun, go. Fengwu nodded at Ajur, then turned her head and said to Xiaoqun. Hearing Fengwu's words, Pure Sword knew that she wanted him to eat as much as he could. He happily circled around Fengwu. Then his whole sword emitted a strong silver light and flew towards the black demon aura. The demon aura in the surroundings dissipated after Xiaoqun passed through it. In less than 3 minutes, the entire underground palace was cleaned up. Only the Black Lotus Pond and the demon general were left to be taken care of. Xiaoqun flew into the room where the demon general was sealed. He ignored Zicheng, who was lying on the ground, and ignored him. He flew into the Black Lotus Pond. When Pure Sword entered the Black Lotus Pond, the demon aura in the pond immediately bubbled. Then the color of the pond became lighter and lighter, until the pond turned back into a spirit pond. Only then did Pure Sword fly out with satisfaction. At this time, Fengwu boldly stood in front of the demon general, and carefully observed the person who had an aura that she disliked. Xiaowu, stay away. This person is a demon general. He's very dangerous. When Ming-Shi saw Fengwu fearlessly approaching the demon general, he was so scared that he almost lost control of his defense, and was hit by the hair. Are you sick? Fengwu tilted her head and carefully observed the demon general for a full 3 minutes before saying. When she said that, Ajur and Ming-Shi were so shocked that they almost fell over. Even Yao Feng, who had been ignored by the demon general, coughed up another mouthful of blood when he heard Fengwu's words. Where did this girl come from? She was so fearless that she dared to talk nonsense in front of the demon general. It was probably because there was a god's child in front of him, an inheritor of the 4 god seals. Also, there was the 7-colored phoenix Xiaoqi. Among the 3 of them, one was a true descendant of a god, one was an inheritor of the god seals, and one was a famous mythical beast. They were all related to God. Chapter 295. Perhaps it was because the 3 of them were too powerful, but the demon general had lost interest in the other weak humans. Yao Feng and Zicheng had become bystanders. Before Ming-Shi and Ajur died, their lives would not be in any danger. Fengwu's appearance did not attract the demon general's attention. Or rather, it was Xiaoqun who attracted the demon general's attention. Although the sword's aura was not strong, the demon general felt an unprecedented sense of danger. When Xiaoqun purified the demon qi, the demon general did not move. When Xiaoqun purified the Black Lotus Pond, he still did not move. He was observing and recalling. In his distant memory, he seemed to have seen this sword before. Where was it? Where exactly was it? He held his head in pain. He seemed to have forgotten a very important memory. A memory related to this sword. What was it? Why did this sword appear in his memory? Because the demon general was immersed in his memories. An expression that he had never seen before appeared on his face. He did not know if it was an illusion, but the red in his eyes seemed to have faded. What's going on? Yao Feng was bewildered. What happened to this demon general? Wasn't he still acting almighty just a moment ago? Why did he seem to be in pain now? Mingxi and Ajur were also confused. They also did not understand what was happening to the demon general. Fengwu only asked him if he was sick. Then he became like this. He hugged her and stood there in pain. Was this question so difficult to answer? After Xiaoqun purified the Black Lotus Pond, he ate the 2 black dragons formed by the demon qi and Mingxi's hair. After purifying them, he spat out pure mana. The black dragons and the troublesome hair disappeared. Mingxi and Ajur rushed to Fengwu's side at the same time. They protected the silly girl behind them. Senior Mingxi, what do you think happened to him? Ajur couldn't figure it out himself, so he could only ask Mingxi. No matter what, Mingxi was still a senior. As a senior, he naturally had the obligation to answer his junior's questions. However, even though Ajur had forgotten about it, Mingxi couldn't figure out what was going on. I don't know either. Everyone be careful. There's something wrong with him. Mingxi looked at the infernal general, with a serious expression. Ajur scratched his head, unable to find the words to describe the feeling. I found it strange just now. This demon general seems to be acting a little. I can't put my finger on it. It's just a strange feeling. It's as if he's missing something. Just now, in order to fight the devil general, he didn't think too much about it. Now that he was free, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. His 7 emotions and 6 desires seem to have been sealed. Only his killing intent is left. Of course you'd find it strange, Mingxi said calmly. Ajur and Yao Feng were shocked. Could it be Lord Longzhigamer? Yao Feng was shocked. In Yao Feng's imagination, Longzhigamer was the strongest person who could seal a powerful demon general. He was the only one who could do such a thing. However, Yao Feng couldn't figure out why Lord Longzhigamer would do such a thing. But it didn't matter. After all, Lord Longzhigamer was always right. This guy was definitely a die-hard fan of Longzhigamer. Mingxi shook his head. It can't be Lord Longzhigamer. He has no reason to do so. Longzhigamer could say that he sealed the demon general to protect world peace. Why would he seal the demon general's 7 emotions and 6 desires and 6 desires? No matter how he thought about it, it couldn't be Longzhigamer's doing. Of course, anyone with a brain wouldn't pin this on Longzhigamer. Could it be the demon ancestor? Ajur guessed that it couldn't be Longzhigamer. Then, the only other person he could think of who was stronger than the demon general, and had a reason to harm others without benefiting himself, was the legendary demon ancestor. Yes, it must be. The demon ancestor must have sealed the 7 emotions and 6 desires in order to control his subordinates to fight for him. Yes, that must be it. Yao Feng exclaimed in realization. Mingxi couldn't figure out who did it either. However, there were very few people who could do it. At least, he didn't think that there were any human experts in the human world who could do it. Can you undo his seal? Ajur asked Mingxi. You want to release his 7 emotions? Don't do it. What if he becomes stronger after releasing his 7 emotions? Yao Feng shook his head in fear. He didn't dare to take the risk. I can't do it. The person who sealed his 7 emotions is too strong. Only my father can do it. Mingxi shook his head. After Xiaoqun finished eating all the devil qi, he started thinking about the demon general, who had been hugging his head. This big guy looked so dangerous and delicious. Xiaoqun wanted to go closer, but he didn't dare. This person gave him a dangerous feeling. No one had ever made him feel this way before. However, was he really not going to eat it? He felt that if he ate this big guy, he would become stronger. In the end, Xiaoqun couldn't resist the temptation of food. The sword flew up and rushed towards the demon general's head. Anyway, Master had given him permission to eat it. It would be a waste if he didn't eat it. At most, he could run if there was danger. Xiaoqun thought and rushed towards the demon general without hesitation. The pure sword flew towards the demon general's head with white sword flowers. The demon general seemed to sense danger. He looked up coldly and opened his hand to block Xiaochun a meter away. He couldn't go any further. Although he couldn't go any further, Xiaochun started using his own power to eat the devil qi. It was Xiaochun's instinct to purify all the filth in the world. If it wasn't for Fengwu, Xiaochun would have gone to the devil world to look for food. The pure sword's light became brighter and brighter. The battle with the pure sword was more intense than the battle between Mingxi and Ajur combined. The devil qi on the demon general's body became more and more turbulent. The devil qi on his body was constantly being purified by Xiaochun. As the devil qi was being purified, the demon general's red eyes became lighter. While Xiaochun was purifying the devil qi, he didn't feel good. The demon general was too strong. Xiaochun tried to purify the devil qi, but the devil qi on the demon general's body was too high level. It wasn't something that Xiaochun could easily purify. Xiaochun's sword became darker and darker. It seemed to have been damaged. Fengwu, who was connected to Xiaochun's mind, felt Xiaochun's weakness. She immediately called Xiaochun back. Xiaochun weakly flew back to Fengwu's side. It seemed to be a little embarrassed. The entire sword was dispirited. Chapter 296. This sword is amazing. It's so human-like. Yao Feng looked at Fengwu and Xiaochun enviously. He wondered when he would be able to use such a good weapon. Fortunately, he had already obtained the Hell's Black Lotus. With the Hell's Black Lotus, the master would probably help him to refine it. By then, Yao Feng Island would have a powerful weapon. Although Yao Feng's sword was good and he could use it easily, he believed that no one would reject the temptation of having another holy weapon. No one was in the mood to care about Yao Feng's fantasies. After the pure sword was summoned back, the red light in the demon general's eyes gradually disappeared. Perhaps it was because some of his demonic nature had been purified. The murderous aura on the demon general's body gradually disappeared. At this moment, images appeared in the demon general's mind. Mia, promise me that you will protect the king forever. Be his sword and eliminate all enemies for the king, okay? Sister, the king doesn't even love you. Why are you doing this for him? Mia, you don't understand. I can betray the whole world for the person I love. If you still consider me as your sister, promise me. Sister, don't you know what the king wants to do? He wants to attack the human world and turn it into the new demon world. Have you ever thought about what would happen if the king really did that? It wasn't easy for the three realms to regain peace. I really don't want to see the tragedy from 10,000 years ago repeat itself. Mia, when did you become so soft-hearted? It's an honor for the humans to sacrifice themselves for the new demon world. Sister, I'm sorry that I can't promise you. I just want to find a place to live in seclusion. I don't want to get involved in the conflicts in the demon world. Don't worry, I won't side with the new demon king and go against the king. No, you can't leave. We are the only ones left among the 12 demon generals. The others have already sided with that person. You are the strongest of the 12 demon generals. If you leave, what will happen to the king? I won't allow you to leave. Cough cough. Sister, your injuries are too serious. Don't talk anymore. It's more important for you to recover. No, I know that I don't have much time left. You must promise me that you will protect the king and be his sword. No. Sister, you'll be fine. I'll find the magic potion to cure you. It's useless. No one can save me. I beg you with my life. Promise me that you'll protect the king forever. All right, I promise you I will protect the king. Thank you, you're really my good little brother. Sister, what did you do? I didn't do anything. I'm just too soft-hearted. In order to make you the strongest weapon in the king's hands, I don't need to be soft-hearted and kind. Mia, rest assured and be the sword in the king's hand. Ah! Ah! The demon general screamed crazily. His voice was filled with pain and sorrow. He remembered. He remembered those memories that had been lost for 1,000 years. Destroy. Why are you doing this to me? I'm your younger brother. Why? 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 He looked up to the sky and howled, his eyes filled with pain and despair. She had been plotted against by her sister, who had grown up with her for tens of thousands of years, all for the sake of her beloved man's return to the throne. Did she not have a place for him, Her younger brother, in her heart? Because of his howl, the entire underground palace began to shake. The palace began to collapse, and there was a tsunami on the sea. The air became oppressive. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Waves rolled and sprayed into the sky. Huge waves that were hundreds of meters tall began to hit Demon Wind Island. The people on the island had just escaped death from the demon Chi, but now they were greeted with another disaster. Ah! Help! I don't want to die. Help me, I'm going to be washed away. Hold on to me. I beg you to hold on to me. Why is this happening? What's going on? Originally, the pirates had already recovered their consciousness after being purified by the pure sword. Who would have thought that just as they were about to catch their breath, they would be attacked by a huge wave? Many pirates and slaves who were caught on the island were swept away by the waves without any preparation. The entire Evil Wind Island began to sink. There was a storm, a tsunami, and huge waves. The helpless cries of the creatures on the sea seemed to be drowned out by the sound of thunder, wind, rain, and waves. In the underground palace, the ground began to crack. Countless amounts of seawater rushed into the palace. Soon, half of the underground palace was submerged. Leave this place, Mingxi roared. It's too late. Ajur shouted. Yes, it was too late. The ground continued to crack. More and more seawater rushed in. Soon, the entire underground palace was submerged. After the initial painful roar, the demon general calmed down. However, he did not stop all of this. He stood there coldly, and no one knew what he was thinking. Under the water, evil wind with the essence of water was the easiest. With the protection of the essence of water, there was no difference whether he was in the water or on the ground. The rainbow phoenix was not a water-type magical beast. It could not fight in the water. The moment the water rushed in, Little Seven, the little guy, cleverly returned to the spirit world. The spirit world was the paradise of all magical beasts. There were many powerful magical beasts living there. There were precious ancient magical beasts, and countless powerful magical beasts. There were also sacred beasts and divine beasts living there. Any magical beast that came out of the spirit world could live in the spirit world without being summoned by humans. Only when summoned by their masters would they come out of the spirit world to fight. The rainbow phoenix was originally a divine beast that lived in the spirit world. A noble divine beast would not live in the human world. As long as it wanted to return to the spirit world, it could go back at any time through the spirit world passage. Little Seven smoothly returned to the spirit world. However, the others could not leave as they wished. It was impossible for them to use a spatial scroll to leave in the current situation. Fengwu used her douqi to create a water barrier for herself. There was no danger for the time being. Fengwu, who was surrounded by water, was not happy. At this moment, the water flow in the underground palace became more and more rapid. Many stone walls were broken through. More than half of the underground palace had already collapsed. The powerful water flow washed them all out of the underground palace. Mingxi and the others were lucky enough to be washed into the sea from a stone wall that was broken through. The sea was not peaceful. The fish were fleeing in all directions. The water-type magical beasts were crying out in alarm. The panicked cries of magical beasts could be heard in the water. The volcano in Haiti had erupted. The fishing villages living in the area of Yanhai were affected by the torrential rain. At this moment, on top of a cliff, there was a man with black hair and black eyes. His eyes were filled with gentleness and love. The man looked at the raging storm in the sea. His gentle eyes revealed a trace of helplessness. The man stretched out a white arm. Then he slightly raised his arm and flicked his slender finger. At the same time, a pure and holy golden ball of light flew out of his hand like a lightning bolt. The ball of light flew forward along the sea until it could no longer be seen. Chapter 297. Since you don't want to see people suffer, why don't you stop the birth of the first demon general, Mia? Not far from the black-haired man, a man in white appeared. The man's face was as handsome as an immortal's. His long black hair and white ancient robes made him look like an immortal who had just walked out of a painting. However, upon closer inspection, the man's figure was somewhat ethereal, as if he wasn't real. This is the decision of the world's consciousness. No one can change it. The only person who can change all of this is the person favored by the world's consciousness. And Xingyuan calmly turned around. Bai Lianfeng gently shook her head. As the dean of the Notre Dame du Starlight, are you sure you don't want to stop it? If you don't stop it, I'm afraid many people in the entire sea world will die because of it. And Xingyuan's expression was still compassionate, but he still shook his head. Their fates can't be changed by me. You should know that the reason I was able to stay in the human world was because I promised the upper realm that I wouldn't interfere too much with the human world's affairs. I also couldn't break the established trajectory. This time, the one who's making a move is the head of the 12 demon generals, Mia. Are you sure those little guys in your school can change all of this? Bai Lianfeng was very confident in her little disciple, but she really didn't have much confidence in the others. Don't forget that your precious disciple is among those little guys, isn't he? And Xingyuan said with a half-smile. They're all your students. Don't forget that you're the dean of the Notre Dame du Starlight. Bai Lianfeng also smiled. At this time, somewhere on Three-Leaf Island, Mo Gui was holding Feng Yi and looking at the storm outside the island. Although Three-Leaf Island wasn't as badly affected as Yaofeng Island, it wasn't easy either. The heavy rain and strong winds forced the fishermen living by the sea to hide in the mountains. Most of the houses by the sea were submerged, and the people on the island were in a miserable state. What do we do? Senior Mingxi and the others will be fine, right? It's too dangerous in such a storm. Mo Gui was worried and paced around the cave. Originally, they were staying in a fisherman's house, but then there was a sudden flash of lightning and thunder, and they had to find a cave to take shelter from the rain. The fishermen also scattered and hid in other caves. Before the storm stopped, everyone could only hide inside. O'Brien, my O'Brien will be fine, right? That bitch Feng Yanran. If anything happens to O'Brien, I will definitely kill her. Mildy gritted her teeth and said with a face full of resentment. I hope everyone is safe. Riot stood to the side and prayed to the gods in the sky. Seeing that Mildy was still thinking about her fiancé at this time, Mo Gui felt a belly full of anger that needed to be vented. At a time like this, you're still thinking about that O'Brien of yours. If it weren't for your pleading, Senior Mingxi and Xiao Wu wouldn't have gone out to look for him. If anything happens to them, I won't let you two jinx off. Mo Gui was really fed up with this woman. Every day, she was worried about her fiancé and didn't mention anything about Senior Mingxi and the others. She was so selfish that it made people's hair stand on end. Mildy's face turned red and she said unhappily, How can you blame me and O'Brien? If you want to blame someone, you should blame Feng Yanran. If she didn't seduce O'Brien to help her, he wouldn't have left the team without permission. Leaving the team without permission was not a small matter. Even if they returned to school, Mingxi only needed to report that Feng Yanran and O'Brien left the team without permission, and it would be difficult for them to form a team in the future. No team needed such a troublemaker who couldn't be disciplined. She originally wanted to beg senior brother Qin, she not to report O'Brien's name. This time, the blame should be shouldered by that bitch Feng Yanran. No matter what, she couldn't let others put the blame on O'Brien. Your words are too ridiculous. Feng Yanran didn't point a sword at him. He decided to leave on his own. If he was determined not to leave with Feng Yanran, could Feng Yanran use force to force him to leave? Although he didn't like Feng Yanran, he also didn't like Mildy. Although this woman didn't have anything to do with other aspects, as long as it was something related to her fiancé, she would become unreasonable. In her eyes, her fiancé was always right. Even if he was wrong, it was someone else's fault. Mo Gui couldn't stand her for a long time. This damned weather made people feel even worse, and his tolerance was greatly reduced. You're speaking up for Feng Yanran. Could it be that you were also seduced by her? Mildy couldn't stand it when someone spoke up for Feng Yanran. Unreasonable. Mo Gui hugged Xiao Yi and dodged to the side, too lazy to deal with this crazy woman. However, the three adults didn't notice that Feng Ye's expression was a bit strange. Mommy, I want mommy. I feel disgusted outside. I want mommy to hug and kiss. I don't like it. It smells bad. It's noisy. Xiao Yi doesn't like it. The little thing struggled and waved his little hand. No one noticed that when Xiao Yi waved his little hand, a powerful force was born in his hand. Bao Bao doesn't like the dark, he wants the light. Bao Bao doesn't like water falling from the sky, rain. Bao Bao doesn't like the noise outside, waves, wind, rain, thunder and lightning. Xiao Yi angrily threw out the energy in his hand. The three people in the cave, two of them were fuming with anger, and one of them was trying to stop the fight. None of them noticed the little thing's actions. While the three of them were unaware, a small ball of light flew out from the Three Leaves Island, and finally flew to the vicinity of Evil Wind Island. The ball of light began to glow, and the light became brighter and brighter. In the end, it turned into a pillar of light that pierced through the clouds and the sea. The volcano at the bottom of the sea calmed down, and the violent winds and tsunami stopped. The rain gradually lessened until it disappeared. The dark clouds in the sky disappeared, and the sun that was hiding behind the dark clouds finally showed its face. The sea was calm, and everything was glowing with vitality. If it wasn't for Evil Wind Island, which had sunk into the sea, reminding everyone that the terrible disaster just now wasn't a dream, everyone would have thought that they were just having a nightmare. Strange? Why did it suddenly clear up? Mo Gui looked at the rainbow in the sky in surprise. What happened? Mildy was also puzzled. Finally, the rain stopped. Riot finally let out a sigh of relief. Now that the rain stopped, they probably wouldn't quarrel anymore. Only Feng Yi opened his little mouth and yawned. He blinked his little mouth and closed his eyes, falling asleep. Bao Bao is so tired, I want to sleep. No one knew the story of how Feng Yi saved the world. After the storm, the fishermen happily prepared to move back to their small homes. Most of the pirates escaped death and floated on the sea. Chapter 298. The two deputy commanders took out a few ships of various sizes from their space rings, and allowed the pirates and slaves to board them. They needed to go to another base on Evil Wind Island to settle down. As for Feng Wu and the rest, the situation was a little unexpected and strange. Less than a minute after the storm stopped, a large portal suddenly appeared in the sky. Then a group of demon soldiers appeared. They were wearing armor and had different hair colors. Seeing this group of demons, Evil Wind felt as if he was facing a great enemy. He was afraid that the demon general's helpers had arrived. However, Mingxi and Ajur seemed to have thought of something. They heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed. Evil Wind was confused. Weren't humans and the demons enemies? Why did they look like they were in the demon realm? Not only were they not worried, but they also looked nonchalant. This was definitely not normal. Had they been beaten silly? However, what happened next proved that Evil Wind was the one who had lost his mind. Master Mia, the Demon King has ordered us to bring you back to the demon realm. Two demons dressed differently from the rest of the demon soldiers walked out. It was obvious at a glance that these two demons were the leaders of this demon troop. The Demon King? He won't let me go. Mia looked up and glanced at the group of demon soldiers. The two demons exchanged glances and said, Master, you misunderstood. The Demon King said that you had no choice in what happened back then. The Demon King has always kept your position as the first demon general. Once you have redeemed yourself, you can return to your former glory. Mia smiled and did not say anything. Let's go. It's good to go back to the demon realm. However, before I leave, I want to know how the king is doing. The two demon soldiers knew that the king he was talking about was not the current demon king, but the former demon king. He was now known as the demon ancestor in the demon realm. They did not underestimate the former demon king, who was now the demon ancestor. Master Mia, the demon ancestor's body has been destroyed. His soul is now sealed. The two demon soldiers did not hide anything. Mia nodded. It was much better than he thought. At least he was still alive. Little girl, come here. At this moment, Mia suddenly turned to look at Feng Wu. There was a look of surprise and confusion in his eyes. Feng Wu felt that he had no ill intentions and walked straight over. Mingxi and Ajur did not stop her. If a dignified demon general wanted to kill someone, she could just do it directly. There was no need to trick people and then kill them. Where did you get your sword? After retrieving all of his memories, he already knew the origin of the sword, But why was it in the hands of a little human girl? Are you talking about Xiaochun? Fengwu blinked. Xiaochun is my friend. He's been living in the mountains behind my house. Later, I pulled him out. Master said that if I could pull Xiaochun out, Xiaochun would be mine. However, the home she spoke of was not the Feng family, but Mount Yuehua. So that's how it is. I didn't expect there to be another person in this world who can use this sword. And it's even a human. Mia nodded and did not say anything else. If he knew more, this little human girl would not know. Let's go back to the demonic world. Mia turned and looked at the two demon soldiers. He stretched out his hands. Put on the demon binding bracelet. The Demon King has ordered that as long as you are willing to return to the demonic world, the demon binding bracelet will not be used. Let's go. Mia was the first to enter the demonic world, followed by a string of demon soldiers. When all the demon soldiers and demon generals had disappeared, the portal in the sky disappeared. That scared me to death. I have never seen so many demons in my life. Yao Feng gasped as he stood on the surface of the sea. The others who were also standing on the sea did not say much. Fengwu was never a curious child, and she did not even think of asking what was going on. Can the two of you tell me what's going on? How did the demonic soldiers come about? Why aren't the demon soldiers attacking us? Yao Feng had a lot of questions to ask. He was so anxious that he was scratching his head. Those demon soldiers are the Demon King's subordinates. They must have received news that Mia's seal has been broken. That's why they sent people to bring him back, Mingxi said. But isn't Mia the former Demon King's subordinate? Why is the current Demon King bringing him back instead of just killing him? Yao Feng was still confused. It was the same in the human world. A new emperor would bring in new subordinates. Didn't the previous emperor kill all the subordinates who refused to return? Mia's identity is very special. He is one of the first 12 demon generals to be born in the demonic world. He is also the most powerful one. The Demon King will not kill him. The demonic world needs someone powerful. Isn't the Demon King afraid that Mia will continue to attack him after he returns? Mingxi looked up at him with a faint smile. Do you think the Demon King, who could even defeat the former Demon King, will be afraid of a demon general? Alright, he had asked a stupid question. Yao Feng wondered if there was something wrong with his brain. Otherwise, he would not have asked such a stupid question. Oh no! Ajur suddenly exclaimed. What happened? Mingxi asked. Those two guys disappeared again. Ajur said helplessly. You mean Feng Yanran and O'Brien? Mingxi raised his eyebrows. It was not easy to find them, but they went missing again. What kind of luck was this? Who else could it be? Fengwu, I'm hungry. Touching her stomach pitifully. Let's look for them first. If we can't find them, there's no other way, Mingxi said. They had already tried their best. If the teacher asked them about it when they returned to school, they would have an answer. Yao Feng also helped because of the 7-colored phoenix. Unfortunately, they had searched everywhere, but there was still no sign of them. They did not know where they had been washed away by the sea. If they were unlucky, they might have been eaten by a water-type demon. If they could not find them, Mingxi and the others would not just wait here. They decided to go to the Three Leaves Island to continue their quest. As for Feng Yanran and the others, they would have to pray for themselves. If they were lucky, they should be fine. Mingxi and the others were going to the Three Leaves Island. Yao Feng, of course, could not go with them. His family had stayed on the island for generations to guard the seal. Now that the seal was gone, and the demon under the seal had returned to the demon realm, he did not have to guard Yao Feng Island anymore. He saw the signal that his brothers had sent him earlier. The others had already moved to another island. He had to hurry over. Yao Feng bid farewell to Mingxi and the others, and went on his journey alone. Mingxi and the others decided to go back to the hidden boat, and take it to the Three Leaves Island. Using magic, they quickly moved forward on the sea. Soon, they arrived at the place where the ship was anchored. However, there was nothing here. The ship was gone. There was nothing left. It could have been driven away by someone, or blown away by the wind and waves. Or if luck was worse, the ship sank. Chapter 299. Without a boat to travel on, Mingxi and the others fell into a small predicament. Fortunately, this predicament did not bother them for too long. Don't forget that they still had the Fengwu girl by their side. The Fengwu girl's circle of friends had always included all kinds of species. Under the efforts of the Fengwu girl, they were lucky enough to find a water-type magical beast nearby that agreed to take them to the Three Leaves Island. Fengwu and the others' transportation problem was solved, but the other 3 people who went missing in the sea were not so lucky. Let's talk about Feng Yanran and O'Brien first. After these 2 guys were washed into the sea by the seawater, they were suddenly sucked into the whirlpool at the bottom of the sea. They disappeared into the depths of the sea along with the whirlpool. As for where they would appear next time, it was uncertain. The other one, Zicheng, was luckier than the other 2. After all, the original female lead had the protection of the system. When no one was paying attention to her, the girl directly entered the system space and avoided a disaster. Zicheng hid in the space and continuously used her mana to recover her body. After drinking a few bottles of health potions, her seriously injured body finally recovered. Her injuries were almost healed. System, what's the situation outside? After hiding in the system space, Zicheng did not go out. She did not think that the Devil General's strength would be so strong. It was simply terrifying. Host, it's calm outside. The system's cold voice came. Hearing this, Zicheng finally heaved a sigh of relief. Just now, the scene of the sky collapsing and the earth shattering outside was too terrifying. Just thinking about it now made Zicheng's scalp tingle. This time, it could be said that she had suffered heavy losses. The 2 things she wanted to obtain were not in her hands. The Rainbow Phoenix had been snatched away by Mingxi, and the demon-suppressing sword had been taken away by the Demon General. She had not obtained either of these things, but she had spent too many favorability points. It was not easy for her to accumulate favorability points, but this time, she had spent so much, which made her heart ache. Forget it, she'd better look for the other members of her team first. She had to complete the traveling mission this time. At most, she would seize the time to gain more favorability points while she was doing the mission. She believed that her favorability points would rise very quickly. Mingxi and the other 2 sat on the turtle's back and sailed on the calm sea. Probably because of the storm just now, there was a rainbow hanging in the sky and seabirds flying on the sea surface from time to time. Everything seemed so calm and peaceful. The gentle sea breeze and the tranquil sound of the waves made people drowsy. Fengwu sat on the tortoise's back, her little head leaning against Mingxi's chest as she fell asleep. Ajur was lying on the tortoise's back, crossing his legs and humming. He looked very relaxed. Mingxi sat there motionlessly, allowing Fengwu to lean on him. The expression on his face was very gentle. Occasionally, when Fengwu tilted her head, he would gently adjust her head to a comfortable position. After sailing on the sea for 7 days, they finally arrived at the Three Leaves Island. The Three Leaves Island was an ordinary island shaped like a clover. There was no real ruler on the island. There was only an old sword grandmaster who had built a castle in the middle of the island. Although the old sword grandmaster was the strongest person on the island, he wasn't the ruler of the island. The residents of the island didn't need to pay taxes to the old sword grandmaster. Of course, the old sword grandmaster didn't need to care about the lives of the residents of the island. The relationship between the 2 sides had always been like well water not interfering with the river water. It could be said that the 2 sides lived peacefully. On the Three Leaves Island, there was a special product called the tricolor shell. The tricolor shell, as the name implied, was a shell made of 3 different colors. The tricolor shell would produce a pearl that emitted 3 different colors. It was called the tricolor pearl. Many noble ladies and ladies were very fond of jewelry made of the tricolor pearl. Therefore, jewelry merchants often paid money to the pearl divers on the Three Leaves Island. It was just that tricolored shellfish were not common, and it was very difficult to find one. Moreover, this kind of tricolored shellfish had a certain attacking power. If one did not pay attention, they would be injured. Therefore, it was not easy to collect pearls. Often, a pearl could be sold for dozens of gold coins. The jewelry merchants who received the pearls could easily sell them for hundreds or thousands of gold coins after some processing. This business was simply explosively profitable. Mingxi's mission this time wasn't to collect the tricolor pearl, but to collect 10 tricolor flowers. The tricolor flower was a kind of flower that grew underwater. It could only be found on the Three Leaves Island. The tricolor flower was the companion flower of the tricolor shell. Therefore, it could only be found on the Three Leaves Island. At first, it was agreed that Mingxi would bring back Feng Yanran and O'Brien, while Mo Gui would be responsible for finding the tricolor flowers. This way, neither side would be delayed. However, when the two sides met, they found out that not only had they failed to bring back the girls, but even Mo Gui and the others hadn't completed the task of collecting the tricolor flowers. This task wasn't difficult. As long as one wanted to find the tricolor flower, it was impossible to not find it. However, after meeting up with Riot and the others, they found out that they had only collected 3 tricolor flowers. Although the tricolor flower wasn't easy to find, it was impossible to find 3 in a dozen days. It must be known that the tricolor flower wasn't as popular as the tricolor shell on the Three Leaves Island. The tricolor flower was only a kind of dye that could be used to dye cloth. However, the dyed cloth would appear in 3 colors. Very few people would appreciate a cloth with 3 colors. The people of the Heavenly Wind continent still preferred monochromatic clothes. Even if they occasionally added other colors to their clothes, they would at most sew some edges on their sleeves or necklines. They would definitely not make a single piece of clothing with multiple colors. Because of this, unlike the tricolor pearl, no one would be interested in the tricolor flower. Even the locals weren't interested in picking it. Logically speaking, this task should be easy to complete. However, it had been more than 10 days, and there wasn't much progress. They had only collected 3 tricolor flowers. This efficiency was too low. When Mingxi asked about the tricolor flower, Mildy heard that Mingxi didn't bring back her fiancé, and was very sad and disappointed. Senior Mingxi, why didn't you bring O'Brien back? Why didn't you bring him back? Why? Her cries got louder and louder, each one sharper than the last. Mildy, this is all an accident. Senior Mingxi can't control it, right? Riot was much more rational than Mildy. After listening to Mingxi's story, he really felt that it wasn't Senior Mingxi's fault. It could only be said that Feng Yanran and O'Brien were unlucky. However, Mildy shook her head and shouted, "No, it must be because he refused to help me find O'Brien. He must be taking revenge on O'Brien for not listening to him. That's why he deliberately didn't bring my O'Brien back." Chapter 300. As she spoke, her eyes were filled with hatred as she looked at Mingxi, as if she was looking at a great enemy. Nonsense, we spent so much effort to sneak into Bewitching Wind Island just to find your damned fiancé, and that brat Feng Yanran. We took so many risks. What right do you have to talk about Senior Mingxi like that? Ajur glared at Mildy with an unfriendly expression. He originally thought that Mildy wasn't too annoying. Although she was a little spoiled, she wasn't stupid. He didn't expect that this woman's IQ would plummet when it came to her fiancé. She was no different from a lunatic. You're all in this together. You didn't bring O'Brien back on purpose. Otherwise, why did the 3 of you come back, but O'Brien is missing? Why didn't you guys get into trouble? As the captain, shouldn't you protect your team members? Mildy didn't listen at all. Her heart ached so much that she couldn't breathe when she thought about how O'Brien had disappeared in such a big storm. That was the man she had wanted to marry since she was young. The man she had loved since she was a child. Mingxi only looked up indifferently at Mildy's accusation. If you really think so, you can report me to the teacher when you go back. If you keep thinking that you're right, I'm willing to accept any punishment. Bad person. Fengwu held the little bun in her arms and glared at Mildy. She deeply felt the malice towards Mingxi from this woman. It wasn't Mingxi's fault, but Mildy still scolded Mingxi. Bad person, bad person. The girl's vocabulary was so limited that she couldn't think of a more powerful curse word. Bad person. The little bun loved his mother the most. Feeling the anger from his little mother, the little guy turned his little head and scolded her. Although the little bun didn't understand what that word meant at all, Fengwu kissed her son in praise. She felt that the little bun was very smart and needed to be praised. Ajur, Mo Gui, and Mingxi. Is it really okay for you to teach your children this way? What right do you have to criticize me? If it wasn't for you, my O'Brien would definitely be fine. Mildy had already turned into a mad dog. What does this have to do with Xiaowu? This time, even Mo Gue couldn't remain silent. Xiaowu was his friend. At this time, he naturally had to stand on her side. Mildy said confidently, "How is it not her fault? She must be too weak. Senior Ming, she only cared about protecting her, so he didn't have time to save O'Brien." The more she thought about it, the more she felt that her guess was correct. As she spoke, the hatred in her eyes towards Fengwu became more obvious. "You're unreasonable," a juror said to her. "If it wasn't for Xiaowu, we might have all died in that underground palace. Your Olian wouldn't have just gone missing. He might have died." Mildy clearly didn't believe him. "Let's go to the seaside and look for the tricolor flower." Mingxi didn't pay any more attention to the clearly delirious Mildy. Compared to arguing with Mildy, he was more concerned about the issue of collecting the tricolor flower. Don't go. If you don't make things clear, don't even think about leaving." Mildy yelled like a madwoman. Fortunately, this was the cave where Mo Gue and the others lived alone. No other villagers came over. The villagers who had lived in the nearby caves had long returned to their homes after the sea calmed down. Now only Mo Gue and the others lived in the cave, so they didn't have to worry about being heard no matter how loud they yelled. As she spoke, she ran to the entrance of the cave and blocked it. No matter what, she wouldn't let them pass and insisted that Mingxi and the others give an explanation. "What are you trying to do?" A juror glared impatiently at Mildy, who seemed to be on the verge of going crazy. "Go and find Olian. I believe that Olian isn't dead. He must be somewhere waiting for us to save him. Go and find him again. You must find him. The sea is vast. Where do you want us to go to find him?" Mingxi frowned slightly. A trace of impatience flashed across the depths of his eyes. "I don't care. You must find him. If you can't find him, you shouldn't have come back," Mildy said confidently. It was as if it was natural for all of them to do so much for her fiancé. "If you want to find him so badly, then go and find him yourself. We won't stop you." Mo Gue couldn't stand this woman for a long time. She usually looked like a normal person. Why did she become so crazy when it came to her fiancé? Indeed, one couldn't judge a book by its cover. Olian's action of leaving the team without permission was wrong. As the team leader, I have done enough for him. I can't let him affect the mission of the rest of the team. What he meant was that the mission was more important. He had already found Olian once, so he wouldn't go a second time. Because they knew that Mildy only cared about O'Brien, everyone had a tacit understanding not to mention the topic of Feng Yanran. After that, no matter how loudly Mildy roared or pitifully begged, it did not arouse the slightest bit of sympathy from everyone. Everyone directly ignored her and went out to look for the tricolor flower. As for Mildy, she could do whatever she wanted. The group walked to the seaside. Not far away was a large village. Mo Gue and the others were already familiar with the villagers and would greet them when they met. The tricolor flower bloomed in the sea. If they wanted to find it, they had to go into the sea. Everyone cast a waterproof barrier around themselves. However, the barrier was condensed with mana and could only last for 3 hours. After that, they would have to come out of the sea due to the lack of mana. Because Fengwu was still holding the child, although they could leave the child to Little White, they couldn't let Little White stay here alone to look after the child. So, the Fengwu girl was left behind while the others jumped into the sea to look for the flower. Mingxi, Ajur, Mo Gue, and Riot, the 4 men, went into the sea together. There weren't any large water-type magical beasts in the sea near the Three Leaves Island. Instead, there were many strange-looking fish. These fish swam around in the water happily. After Mingxi and the others went into the sea, they split up to look for the tricolor flower. Before Mingxi and the others came back, only one person could go into the sea to look for the flower. Of course, it would take a long time for one person to find it. It was already very difficult to find 3 flowers. Seeing that there were 4 people in the sea, Riot finally regained his confidence in completing the mission. Before Mingxi and the others came back, Riot was the one under the most pressure. Before Mingxi left, he told him to take the other two to do the mission. He felt that it was his responsibility. Although he tried very hard to do what Mingxi asked him to do, his teammates were too good at tricking people and greatly affected the speed of the mission. Chapter 301. Needless to say, Mildy was the one who cheated her teammates the most. Ever since she came to the Three Leaves Island, she did nothing but stare at the sea, waiting for her fiancé to return. As for the remaining two men, a baby and a nanny beast, they naturally couldn't go into the sea together to protect little Yi. Although the Holy Mother was protecting him, there were many merchants coming and going on the Three Leaves Island. They didn't feel at ease leaving a baby with a nanny beast. In order to protect little Ye's safety, one of them would stay behind to look after the baby while the other went to the sea to look for flowers. That way, they wouldn't be able to complete the mission before Mingxi and the others returned. Riot blamed himself for this, feeling that it was all because he didn't do his job well enough. He was too capable and couldn't complete the mission given to him by his seniors. In order to make up for his mistake, Riot looked for flowers especially seriously. The others were also seriously searching, but after 2 hours, they only found 2. After 2 hours, Mingxi was fine, but the other 3 weren't. Ajur was a fire mage and didn't like to stay in the water. His mana would drain very quickly if he stayed in the water. Because of this, even though Ajur was much stronger than Emogue and Riot, he still felt that his mana was drained and needed to go ashore to rest. In the sea, no one would really stay in the water for 3 hours, and only come out when their mana was depleted. The sea wasn't a safe place. Whether it was during a mission, they had to preserve a certain amount of fighting power. If they came out after their mana was depleted, wouldn't they only be waiting for death when they encountered danger? The 4 men came out of the sea and saw Fengwu sitting on a big rock with the baby in her arms and playing. As for the omnipotent nanny beast, Xiaobai, it was cooking fish by the sea. Not only fish, but also lobsters and crabs. Whitey, your cooking is getting better and better. Ajur sat down beside the fire and took a crispy golden grilled fish from the grill. He praised after taking a bite out of the grill. Whitey's large eyes narrowed. It seemed that it was very happy to be praised. Compared to its owner, it is indeed much better. Emogue clearly knew that the Fengwu girls' dishes were all dark cuisine. At this moment, Fengwu walked over with several tricolored flowers in her hand. Where did this come from? Riot was shocked. They had only found 2 after searching for so long, but Fengwu had found 7 or 8. This was illogical. A friend gave it to me, Fengwu said. Just now, when Fengwu was waiting on the shore with the baby in her arms, she saw several small fish magical beasts. After chatting with them for a while, a few more small magical fish appeared in the Fengwu girls' circle of friends. The little fish knew that Fengwu was looking for the tricolor flower, so the clever little magical fish gave Fengwu 1 tricolor flower for each beast. That was how she got 7 flowers. The problem that had troubled him for so many days was solved so easily by the Fengwu girl. Riot felt as if he had been shot in the knee by an arrow. He knelt down in front of the Fengwu girl. After eating a seafood feast, everyone discussed and decided to rest for a day before returning. Oh no! Oh no! Mildy took our boat away. Riot said as he ran into the cave. Oh no! Mildy took our boat away. What? That woman really dared. Ajur was so angry that he almost laughed. The crew and the boat were all hired by Mingxi. The one who paid was also Mingxi. Back then, Mingxi had only bought another boat to sail to Bewitching Wind Island, because he was worried about the safety of the crew. The original boat was used by Riot and the others. That boat had everything, and the captain was very experienced. If they wanted to return to land, they would need the captain's guidance. They didn't think that Mildy would take their only boat away for the sake of her fiancé, who didn't even have her in his heart. That woman's actions completely angered everyone. Damn woman, I knew she wasn't a good person. She's so selfish. Emogue was so angry that he almost spat out blood. By the way, how did you find out that the boat was missing? Mingxi asked. Riot shook his head in embarrassment. I didn't find it. An uncle in the village found it. He knew that we hadn't left yet, and was afraid that someone had stolen our boat. That's why he came to report it. Someone came to report it. After asking a few villagers, they said that someone saw Mildy get on the boat alone. That's how I found out. Mingxi nodded in understanding. It's fine. We can just find another boat. If she wants to take it away, let her. Mildy and her fiancé are both bad people. One of them is willing to do anything for a woman, even going to Red Skull's lair. The other is even crazier. For a man who doesn't love her, she's not afraid to go against the whole world. Ajur said with a sigh. Bad people. Fengwu nodded in agreement with Ajur's words. Let's rest for a while. We'll go to Trade Island tomorrow and buy another boat. There should be a boat going to Trade Island on Three Leaves Island, right? Mingxi said. There is, but I don't know if there's a boat going tomorrow. The boats on the island would only go out to other islands on certain days. They wouldn't go out at other times. How about this? I'll go ask the villagers tomorrow. If there's a boat tomorrow, that'll be great. If there isn't, we'll think about what to do. Let's see if we can play for a few more days, or find another way to get to Trade Island. Mo Gui's idea was unanimously approved. Everyone found a place to lie down and rest, waiting for the next day to decide. The next day, Mo Gui went to visit the villagers and asked when the boat to Trade Island would depart. He didn't expect that it would be 5 days later. After asking about the time, Mo Gui returned to the cave they were temporarily staying in, and explained the situation to everyone. The cave was silent. What do we do now? Do we wait 5 days before leaving or find another way? Mo Gui threw this question to the team leader, Mingxi. How about this? We'll see if we can find a passing merchant ship willing to take us. If there isn't a merchant ship, then we'll wait for the boat from Three Leaves Island in 5 days. Of course, no one had any objections to Mingxi's decision. After all, they had completed their mission. It didn't matter when they went back, as long as they returned before school started. Fortunately, they did find a passing merchant ship willing to take them. This ship's destination wasn't Central City, nor was it Trade Island. It was a place called Falling Jade Island. Falling Jade Island was a large island, and one of the most powerful in the outer seas. Falling Jade Island was made up of 12 small islands. Each island had an island master. In other words, there were 12 island masters on Falling Jade Island. Chapter 302. Apart from the first island master who lived on the main island, the other 11 island masters lived on the 11 smaller islands surrounding the main island. Among the 12 island masters, 3 were archmages, 2 were swordsmen, and the other 7 were either archmages or archmages. With 12 experts guarding the island, coupled with the rich resources on Falling Jade Island, there would be many merchant ships every year. It just so happened that the merchant ship that Mingxi and the others found was going to Falling Jade Island. They also heard that there were regular ships going to Central City from Falling Jade Island. This was good news for Mingxi and the others. In this way, they wouldn't have to buy or hire a ship to go back. After deciding to go to Falling Jade Island, Mo Gui and the owner of the merchant ship finalized the matter. The owner didn't intend to take the money. After knowing that they were students of the Notre Dame du Starlight, the owner only asked them to lend a hand if the merchant ship was in danger. Sailing on the sea was not peaceful. Apart from the occasional water-type magical beast that might come out to attack human ships, the most important thing to guard against was the pirates. Generally, large merchant ships had connections with pirates. Every year, they had to hand over a lot of money to the pirates to ensure that they wouldn't be hijacked when they went out to sea. On the other hand, medium-sized or small merchant ships without connections couldn't find a place or didn't have enough money to make connections, so they could only hire some adventurers to help protect the safety of the goods on board. The owner of this merchant ship was called Hart. Hart was an ordinary merchant whose family hadn't been in the business for generations. As he said, he was just a little luckier than some people. Coupled with a certain degree of business acumen, he worked his way up from a small fisherman to a small owner of a small fortune. Hart was a burly man in his 50s. Judging from the power exuded from his body, he wasn't very strong. He was only a great swordsman in his 50s. It could be seen that he didn't have any talent for cultivation. Hart's personality was very straightforward and upright. He was very kind to his subordinates. Apart from Hart's own people, there was also a small mercenary team on the ship. This small mercenary team was specially hired by Hart to protect the cargo on the ship. Ming-Shi and the others boarded the ship. Naturally, the group of mercenaries saw them. The mercenaries were already used to Hart's style. Under normal circumstances, as long as it was on the way, he wouldn't mind giving them a ride. In addition to Ming-Shi and the others, there was also a pair of siblings and 3 adventurers in the cabin. They were all people who were on overseas missions or traveling. Because these people were all going to Falling Jade Island, and there were still many empty rooms on the ship, Hart didn't refuse them, nor did he take their money. He only asked them to help if the ship was in danger. This request was not too much, and everyone who wanted to board the ship agreed. After Ming-Shi brought Fengwu and the others onto Hart's merchant ship, he discovered that in addition to a dozen crew members, there were also more than 20 guards that Hart had brought along. Including the group of mercenaries, there were quite a lot of people on this merchant ship. Because Fengwu was a girl and had a child, she was assigned a room alone. Ming-Shi and the other 4 men were given 2 rooms. After the rooms were arranged, the ship's crew brought them to their respective rooms. Fortunately, the 3 rooms were adjacent and not far from each other. It was very convenient to find someone. After settling down, the merchant ship set off toward Jadefall Island. The journey from 3 Leaves Island to Falling Jade Island wasn't too far. It only took 10 days by ship. In the evening, Hart asked the kitchen to prepare a meal, and invited all the guests to eat in the cabin. As the host, Hart naturally sat there. Everyone, come and sit. Don't be polite. It's fate that we met on the vast sea. Tonight, there's good wine and good food. Everyone, eat as much as you can. Hart laughed and invited Ming-Shi and the others to sit down. This time, in addition to Hart and Ming-Shi's group, there were also people from the mercenary group responsible for the safety of Hart and the goods. This mercenary group had more than 20 people. The leader was a sword grandmaster, and the 2 assistants were great swordmasters and great magicians. Apart from these people, the remaining 20 or so people were not weak either. They were all good fighters. Apart from the 3 leaders of the mercenary group, the other members didn't come. They were all patrolling outside. Thank you for the invitation, Boss Hart. Thank you, Boss Hart. I'm really sorry to let Boss Hart treat us like this. The people who entered the cabin exchanged a few polite words with Hart before walking in. According to the arranged seats, everyone sat down and a maid poured wine for everyone. Boss Hart is too polite. Let me toast to Boss Hart first. Like Ming-Shi and the others, the older brother of the 2 siblings who had hitched a ride on the ship raised his glass to toast Hart. After Hart raised his glass and drank with him, Ming-Shi and the 3 adventurers also toasted Hart. After everyone had toasted, the 3 leaders of the mercenary group raised their glasses and toasted Hart. The atmosphere at the banquet was very harmonious. Hart was a businessman, so he was very good at driving the conversation. Everyone chatted with each other, and the conversation was quite harmonious. This banquet was mainly to entertain the 3 leaders of the mercenary group, so Hart spent most of the time talking to them. Of course, he didn't neglect the others. Hey, are you going to Falling Jade Island for the Sea God's tomb? A clever and cute girl around 16 or 17 years old came to Fengwu's side and whispered. This girl was the younger sister of the brother and sister. They were also on the 3 Leaves Island. The brother and sister were quite strong. The younger sister was a mid-level mage, while the older brother was a high-level swordmaster. Both of them were quite young. The younger sister was only in her teens, while the older brother was only around 25 years old. They could be considered young and promising. The 2 introduced themselves as nobles of Shilua country. This time, the brother and sister were traveling overseas together. They didn't expect to hear news about the sea god's tomb, so they found a boat to go to Falling Jade Island to participate in the exploration of the tomb. Fengwu sat beside a jur and was eating a drumstick. She didn't expect someone to talk to her. She calmly turned her head and swallowed the drumstick in her mouth. What sea god's tomb? Fengwu blinked her big eyes, indicating that she didn't know what she was talking about. The girl widened her eyes in shock, as if she couldn't believe that there was someone who didn't know about this. What? You don't know? Then why are you going to Falling Jade Island? To take a boat back to Central City, Feng Wu replied matter-of-factly, her face expressionless. Chapter 303. Don't you want to explore the sea god's tomb? That's the tomb of a god. Won't you regret it if you return like this? The girl hadn't expected anyone to ignore the temptation of the sea god's tomb. Miss, can you tell us more about the sea god's tomb? Ajur asked with a friendly smile. The girl didn't expect this handsome youth to take the initiative to speak to her. My name is Margaret. You can just call me by my name. There's no need to be so distant, Margaret said with a red face as she fiddled with her fingers. Mo Gue spat out a mouthful of wine when he heard this. Since when were you close to Ajur? How come I didn't know about this? Ajur and Margaret didn't hear Mo Gue's silent curses. Ajur calmly called out the girl's name. All right, Margaret. Can you tell us more about the sea god's tomb? Those familiar with Ajur knew that he wasn't a patient person. He would only be patient when he had something in mind. Mo Gue knew that Ajur wanted to know more about the sea god's tomb. Since he was also curious, he didn't say anything. Do you remember the thunderstorm a few days ago, and the eruption of tsunamis and underwater volcanoes? Margaret asked. Of course. I'm sure anyone who experienced it will remember it well. Ajur's smile was elegant and charming. The sea god's tomb I'm talking about is the final resting place of a sea god. It's very hidden and protected by a magic array. Ordinary humans like us can't find it at all. However, due to the underwater volcano eruption a few days ago, the magic array protecting the sea god's tomb was damaged. The tomb, originally hidden in the depths of the sea, was revealed to everyone. The first to discover it were the island lords of Falling Jade Island. After discovering the divine tomb, they immediately wanted to explore it. Unfortunately, even though the magic formation protecting the divine tomb had been destroyed, the passage to the divine tomb still couldn't be opened. Left with no choice, the island lords of Jade Drop Island spread the news, hoping to attract more experts to open the divine tomb. That's why my brother and I boarded Boss Heart's ship and wanted to go to Jade Fall Island. If you're not busy, why don't you stay and explore the tomb of the gods together? Isn't that more interesting? Margaret said with a smile. So that's how it is. We didn't know that such a big thing had happened. Ajur stroked his chin. He really didn't think that the divine tomb had anything to do with them. Speaking of which, the appearance of the tomb of the god of sin was also due to the demonic general Mia. At that time, Feng Wu's divine sword had purified a portion of the demonic power, which had also weakened the power that sealed his 7 emotions. Mia had broken the seal and regained his original nature. He had lost control of his emotions for a while, causing a great disaster to the ocean world. Although the storm had stopped due to some unknown power, it had unexpectedly led to the sea god's tomb. Feng Wu girl quietly ate her chicken drumstick. She had no interest in the sea god's tomb at all. After chatting with Margaret for a while, the banquet soon came to an end. After the banquet, everyone gathered in Mingxi's room to begin. What do you think, Senior Mingxi? This sea god's tomb seems very interesting. Let's go together, Mo Gue said excitedly. This was the tomb of the gods they were talking about. The chance to explore it didn't come often. It would be a shame to miss it. Riot was also looking forward to the trip. They hadn't come across anything thrilling on this trip, and even if there had been, it wouldn't have been his turn to participate. Now that the tomb of the gods was right in front of them, it would be a waste if they didn't go in. The sea god is a Khanate divine spirit. The tomb of a Khanate divine spirit isn't that easy to enter. I'm afraid we'll die as soon as we enter, Mingxi said after some thought. Senior Mingxi, why don't you take us in? Everyone, take care of yourselves. If you're unlucky and come out, you can't blame anyone else, Ajur persuaded Mingxi. He had always been interested in excitement like this. Ajur is right. After we go in, we won't blame you, Senior, no matter if we live or die. Riot and Mogwai immediately agreed. No, this trip is dangerous. We've already completed our mission. There's no need to complicate matters. Don't mention it again, Mingxi said firmly, unmoved. Mingxi's work was different. Apart from Feng Wu, everyone else looked listless and lethargic. Mingxi didn't pay them any mind. Instead, he wore a solemn expression. It seemed the world at sea was about to be stirred up again. In a place far away from the sea, news of the sea god's tomb's appearance was spread to the continent. Suddenly, the continent was in a frenzy. Experts were constantly making their way to Jadefall Island through various means. All of a sudden, the various flying stations and docks were bustling with business, contributing greatly to the development of the transportation industry. Naturally, Mingxi and the others didn't know about this. The journey to Jadefall Island was a full 10 days. Apart from Heart's appearance on the first day, they didn't see Heart for the next few days. However, whether Heart appeared or not wasn't important to them. Everyone continued to live their own lives. Life on the ship was boring. When Fengwu had nothing to do, she would hold Little Bun and practice walking on the deck. Little Bun could already walk stably. After finally getting rid of his reptile identity, Fengyi became addicted to adventure. When he had nothing to do, he would have Whitey follow him around and run around the ship. Because Fengyi was only a little over a year old, no one said anything. Occasionally, some kind-hearted people would remind Fengwu to look after the child and make sure he didn't get hurt. On the 5th day of the voyage, an earth-shattering shriek sounded from the deck. A middle-aged beauty in a magician's robe was chasing Little Bun around. She was in her 20s, and her skin wasn't very good. Perhaps it was because she lived on the sea all year round, but there were some small spots on her face. Even though there were some blemishes, she was still an average beauty. At this moment, the beauty's eyes were bloodshot, and her face was ashen. She looked at Fengyi as if he were her father's murderer. She chased after Fengyi with a black staff in her hand, and a pillar of water mercilessly shot toward Fengyi. Little Fengyi was being carried in Whitey's arms as he ran. The little guy would grin from time to time, as if he didn't know that his life was in danger. He thought that she was playing with him. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.